It's happening.
There it is.
Yeah.
Now we're
now
live.
live.
Welcome to our first May election night stream. It's a pretty big. I think we are definitely going to go live 3 of the next 4 Tuesdays for sure. Sorry about next Tuesday. It's not that one. We'll worry about that. It's not a big one, but this is the start of. We got tonight is Indiana and Ohio, and I got my partners in crime here, Chris Cillizza, Jeff Scully. And I look at tonight as the beginning of we're trying to find out. This month is going to tell us how lame the duck is in the office, right?
Yep.
We're going to find out in these state Senate primaries. We're going to find out in the Thomas Massie primary in Kentucky just how much juice is left in Donald Trump's squeeze.
Yep.
And that begins tonight. Ohio, in theory, a much bigger deal state, but really a much bigger deal in November. Not a ton of primaries that are going to be of huge importance. So we really are focused on Indiana, and the polls have already closed. Mr. Skelly, walk us through Indiana, calling Indiana races. Is it going to be a fast night, a slow night? Take us through the system.
Yeah, so Indiana is not the fastest. Their polls closed at 6 p.m. East. Well,
he's so political. Not the fastest.
Well, every state does things differently, and some are just a bit more. Some are just quicker than others. And most of the state closed their polls closed actually at 6 p.m. Eastern. But the northwest corner of the state around Chicago, or outside of Chicago, Gary, sort of in that vicinity, close at 6 p.m. Central, so 7 p.m. Eastern.
Jackson 5, home to the Jackson 5.
Exactly, home to the Jackson 5, right. Yes. And so Indiana and Kentucky, the only 2 states that close at 6 p.m. But anyway, the main thing that is going on in Indiana are 7 state Senate. Yes, state Senate. No, not U.S. Senate. State Senate.
We are rarely this focused on a state Senate.
No, yeah, this
set of state Senate primaries, but this is unique.
Very unusual. So you have 7. So back late last year, you may recall that Republicans in Indiana, in the state Senate specifically, shot down a redistricting proposal for the congressional map in Indiana, and now President Trump has endorsed primary challengers in 7 primaries against 7 senators who are seeking re-election who voted against that legislation. Lauren, I don't know if you can bring mine up there. I've got sort of the map here of 7. Yeah, that doesn't look as great as I'd hoped, but let's zoom in a little bit. Well, it's just Indiana. It's a long state. It's not as good on vertical, but maybe it's better if you're watching this on your phone or something. Anyway, you've got 7 seats kind of all over the state, and they're a variety in terms of sort of how red they are. Most of them all of them are Republican leaning seats, but some of them it's like Trump plus 10, and then others are like Trump plus 30. And really the main thing has been that there's been a ton of outside spending. Ad Impact just put out numbers today on how much spending there have been in state Senate primary on just ad spending. And there have been $13.5 million spent. God. And that was $13 million more than the highest they've had in the last 3
It's so funny. It's so
funny.
I saw that exact same thing. It was like 13.5 million. 13 million more, because I was like, of course it's state Senate races.
Right.
You don't spend $500,000 is like a decent chunk in a state Senate primary. I mean,
So
$13.5 million.
Yeah. So, and the biggest spenders have been groups that are aligned with President Trump, aligned actually with his ally, Republican U.S. Senator. Let's be specific here so people don't get confused. U.S. Senator Jim Banks. And they have spent a lot of money going after these senators. Now, the 7 senators in question did significantly outraise their primary opponents, but this is a lot of outside money getting dumped in, and it's an unusual situation in that sense. And so there seems to be just a lot of uncertainty about how things are going to play out tonight.
And Trump has sort of made this. It's not as big as Massie, right? I mean, I don't talk about it all the time, but he has gone after Rod Bray, the state Senate Majority Leader, who's not on the ballot. He's up in 2028, but to try to sort of, if these 7 lose and they're replaced by 7 Trump aligned, to see if they can push Bray out. I mean, this is Chris Lasavita, Trump's co-campaign manager in 2024, has been very active in attacking these people. I think Chuck's right to frame it this way. Like, this is the first test of kind of Trump has had an iron grip on the party. I mean, there's no question about that.
Right.
It's a real test of, does it remain? Jeffrey, is there any, I mean, these are state Senate races. Like, is there polling? I mean, do we have any sense on where these things land? I mean, this is not like a U.S. Senate race where there's going to be at least some polling in like the Illinois primary, or the Texas primary. We obviously had data to go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite possible. Obviously, these campaigns have their internal polling that they've done or had done, but we haven't seen anything publicly for these races that I've seen, and it's so that I think also is problematic in terms of trying to understand what's happening and just how much these are catching on. There's been a lot of reporting that suggests, for instance, that some of the challengers have struggled to articulate exactly what their challenge is about, because redistricting. Yeah. Really, look, redistricting is going to matter to some really hardcore partisans, of course, and the kind of people who vote in primaries. Right. But a lot of people who vote in primaries still aren't going to care that much about redistricting. They're more interested in other issues, right? So how do you make that pitch? And so they've tried to find other ways to attack these incumbents, but those ways may not be as there just may not be as much juice to squeeze, as you said earlier.
Yeah.
Chuck.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think is a good night for Trump? Knocking off 5 of these guys, a majority?
Yeah, simple majority.
Five
I think
8.
4.
He targeted 8.
He targeted
it simple, 4 of 7.
So he endorsed 7, even though there are 8 on the ballot, right? Mm-hmm. So Skelly, did he work to, what is the deal with the other one? I would say a simple majority, Chuck, to answer your question. So if it's 7-4,
right, if it's 8, simple. To keep things simple, I didn't include the 8th on this particular table that we're looking at right now, but there was an 8th senator who was up this year, but President Trump did not endorse in that race, and the outside groups did not really play in that race.
That's interesting. Yeah. I wonder
why.
Yeah,
it's curious.
They all have the same thing in common. They voted against the map, right?
Now,
yeah,
by the way,
reason.
It is interesting. You have, so you noted Jim Banks is also sort of the primary statewide vehicle helping the Trump team on this. The governor, Mike Braun, has certainly endorsed everybody Trump's endorsed.
Some of his groups have played a little bit too. Yeah.
Right. But then you have the former governors, plural, one of them who happened to be a vice president, Mitch Daniels and Mike Pence, actually campaigning not for all the incumbents, but for any of the incumbents that wanted their help.
Yep.
So it really
pretty telling.
Maybe it's too far to say this is the beginning of what could be what the divide in the party looks like after Trump leaves, right? Sort of, it's almost like your institutional wing of the Republican Party, Mitch Daniels, Mike Pence, versus sort of the populist wing of the party, right? Jim Banks and Mike Braun were Republicans who wouldn't have been able to succeed in the era of Mitch Daniels.
No, well,
right.
Chuck,
so it is worth.
But now Mitch Daniels would struggle to succeed. You know,
totally.
I mean,
correct.
Here we are.
He couldn't win in this environment.
Right. And to Skelly's point about Banks, right? Like the other senator, U.S. senator in the state, is a Republican, Todd Young. I mean,
not doing
like,
a thing. Yeah.
He is, and I think Young versus Banks is a real look. We know this, right? This is. It used to be. There's a split in the Republican Party in Indiana. There long has been. Now it's more like MAGA versus establishment, but there's always been kind of like the Mitch Daniels wing, and then the more like socially conservative Pence. Pence was kind of in that space.
Look,
it's been realigned now, but like Todd Young is a Republican U.S. senator who is not involved in this in any way, shape, or form. And he has been a guy who has been less willing to jump fully on the Trump train at all times.
Let me put it in other words. I asked somebody, who's, with Mitt Romney gone, and let's assume Susan Collins is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Who else would have Lisa Murkowski's back? And the 2 names you hear the most are John Curtis and Todd Young.
That's who I would have said. Yeah.
And then third on that list is Jerry Moran of Kansas. That those, and they all 3 really are. And if John Thune weren't in leadership, people probably would have said John Thune, but they certainly might say Mike Rounds, right? Exactly it's basically the pre-Trump Republican Party that was not liberal. Okay, right? There was a pre-Trump Republican Party that was conservative, but more in the Liz Cheney, Paul Ryan definition of conservative. And I guess that's where I would put these folks.
Hey, Skelly, I have a question before we got Pete Seat, our friend, Indiana's own, coming on.
Who can tell this? he could tell this stuff better than the three
He's
of us.
the best. I have one quick question before Pete comes on, which is, I got a bunch of people in my YouTube chat asking about turnout. What do we know, if anything? Again, I always don't know because it's state Senate races. I don't know, like, do we have any sense of that?
Yeah, so in terms of statewide turnout, I think our running estimate for Indiana, and I believe this is across both parties, is like 700,000 votes. How that breaks down from district to district is going to be difficult. Now, Indiana and Ohio are states that don't have party registration.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to know where it's
coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have estimates for the Ohio side as well. It's like a little over 800,000 on the Republican side and like 700 something thousand on the Democratic side. But there are no statewide races in Indiana. On the primary ballot, I should say. It's worth noting that
Is it Secretary of State up or something? They do have one statewide race, but there's no primaries, right?
There are a handful of states, Indiana and Michigan being the main two, where down ballot offices besides U.S. Senate and governor are nominated at conventions. So they do not.
Interesting. That's right. Because Evan Bayh's son is running for Indiana Secretary of State. Right.
Third generation of Bayhs.
Birch Bayh.
If we're talking,
it's his Bo Bayh? I thought
this
it was
Bo Bayh. Yes, it's Bo Bayh.
Birch was dad.
His grandfather's name. Yes,
Birch's dad. Who I believe, by the way, if I really want to get fun with like little weird trivia questions, Birch Bayh, whose last race, I think the driver on that race was none other than Ron Klain. I believe, by the way, if you really want to go deep,
can we ask Pete Seed if he knows?
Ron Klain was really
tight. Let's bring Pete in. Let's bring Pete in.
Mr. Seed.
There he is, the man from Indiana.
Hello, friends. It's good to see
Look,
you.
he's like Jim Nance.
He is. Hello, friends.
Pete, did you hear what Chuck asked? I don't know if you know that because it's Democrats.
It's weird lore, but I feel like was Ron Klain Birch Bayh's last driver, and therefore that's how he and Evan became close?
Honestly, I did not know that, if it's accurate. Of course, Ron is a Hoosier, so that would make sense.
That's right.
But that campaign,
and he's part of the Bayh world. I knew that.
I do know that was 1980, right? He lost to Dan Quayle.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then Evan's last candidacy, his last campaign was 2016. He lost to the aforementioned Todd Young.
Yep.
And the last time Evan was on a ballot and won was 2004. So
God, we're old because I remember.
Bayh.
Yeah, it's just interesting because it's
been a long goodbye, is what you're saying.
Oh my God!
Thank you very much. Look, you're gonna have middle-aged white guys. You're gonna get dad humor.
You're gonna get dad jokes. Hey Pete, I always bounce this stuff off of people who aren't super political. And I was trying to explain to my wife why we were doing this tonight. She was like, Indiana, is anything going on? And I was like, well, it's like a test of like Trump, this Indiana state Senate. She was like, they're spending all that money on it going after Republicans, which I think is fascinating. Like, how is it landed in the state? Like, because it is not. We did this for the Virginia redistricting thing. We did this exact same thing, and we noted it was close, and Republican national groups didn't spend a ton. Well, that's not the case here. Republican national groups aligned with Trump spent a ton.
And not only that, Pete, before you answer this question, the anonymous grumble on Capitol Hill this week has been, wait a minute, so they spent all this money in Indiana but didn't spend any money in Virginia? Yeah. Got it.
And that's not the first time I've heard that grumble. And talk about spending money. $13 million in ad spend on these state Senate races. That's a nearly 5,000% increase from what we're used to. It is out of this world, the amount of money that has come in. And that's one of the big knocks on this entire effort has been the out-of-state influence. If you talk to these state senators who are running for re-election, being targeted by the president and by Turning Point USA and Club for Growth, they will tell you their constituents were nearly unanimous in their opposition to redrawing the maps. Yet, nevertheless, that was the catalyst. That's what got Trump involved. That's what got all these outside groups involved. Yet, you didn't really hear about it on the campaign trail. Redistricting barely came up. It was barely mentioned in these $13 million worth of ads. But real quick, I was listening before I jumped on. I do want to just make a couple points. One on turnout. I think we got to be careful in this state. I don't know how many other states do this, but if there are no contested races in a community, there's no election. So this has happened to me before in municipal races, maybe not so much in a midterm, obviously not in a presidential year,
right?
But if you're going somewhere, if you're going to a community and there's no one's contested, there's no primaries, they're not going to let you vote. So that suppresses and depresses the actual turnout numbers.
I was just going to say, so what that does, Pete, is it means that people don't get in the habit of, it's May. What do there must be a primary week. And then, not this year, but maybe next year. So so when there are races on the ballot, do you feel like Indiana just punches below its weight when it comes to turnout and primaries because of this?
I do. I think that absolutely. And it drives me nuts when we talk about low turnout. It's like, well, we're not even giving voters a chance to vote. I mean, if you look at my voter record, it's got 2 blanks on it. And you would think, oh, well, Pete didn't show up. Well, I went both times and they turned me away both times because there were no contested races.
That is so weird.
Yeah, it is very weird. It's, we're saving taxpayer money. Well, not really.
Right.
It's still open.
Right.
You're still here voting. But the other point, you mentioned Todd Young, and you may have said this before I jumped into the green room, but one of the gentlemen on that list you had of incumbents, Greg Good, is actually the state director for Todd Young.
He's both a state senator,
so he's a state
senator. He has 2 jobs. You can do that because it's a part-time state senator.
So he's so Todd is involved, maybe not out front, but he's got some skin in this game. And then Spencer Deary, another one of those incumbents, is very, very closely associated with Mitch Daniels, who you also mentioned. He worked for Mitch at Purdue University, was a speechwriter.
And I know Deary is the one who they've spent $2+ million just on that race, which is unbelievable for a state.
Well, that obviously makes that one matter more than others.
Yeah.
So handicap this a little for us, Pete. Look, we're how many of these incumbents do you think survive?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, of course, you're putting me on the spot. Thanks. I expected that. Have the results come in yet so I can say I knew what was going to happen?
Yes, that's always the best. Let me just wait to see who won, and then I'll tell you who won.
Yeah, that's been my standard line most of the day.
They are trickles. We are in trickle land here.
Yeah, we've got 0% reporting in the 38th district, Greg Good, that you mentioned. I brought that up on screen, and we have 100. We have like 500 votes in one Senate district. It's not a lot yet.
Yeah, I've seen some returns for the Greg Walker, Michelle Davis race. I think is the only one, and actually also the Travis Holdman race, which is over on the eastern side of the state.
And those do not look good for the incumbent Holdman, according to our
Holdman doesn't in those early returns. Walker was leading. He's the incumbent, at least in what I saw.
Hey, Jeffrey, can you help our viewers tonight?
I'm bringing them up.
What colors are going to be incumbents and what colors are going to be challengers?
So it's going to vary from 1 to 1. So
don't do this to us. You're going to kill us if you do that.
Yeah, it is because like the other guy was purple. Yeah.
So I brought up Greg Walker here. I think it's an ABC order, I believe, is the coloring scheme. So Michelle Davis, state rep. This is actually one of the more significant challenges of those 7 in terms of Davis being an elected member of the lower house, taking him on. But Walker is ahead in the early returns here, and we estimate that's roughly 23% of the expected vote.
And hey, Pete, that raises a question with me, which is how many of these people who they found to take on these 7 Senate incumbents, how many are like Michelle Davis, like a state rep? The reason I'm thinking of it is because I was talking to somebody in Kentucky about the guy running against Tom Massey, and they were like, man, he's just like a cardboard cutout who just says like Trump. Like no one had ever heard of him before they found this guy, Ed Gulrine, to run. Like, are these people that having been in Republican politics in the state for a long time, or is it like a mixed bag?
It's mostly a mixed bag, Chris. The challenger to Travis Holdman is a city councilman in Bluffton, Indiana. The challenger to Jim Buck, which is the Kokomo area, is a county commissioner in Tipton County, Indiana. That one is interesting. His name is Tracy Powell, the commissioner. He was actually planning to run before redistricting. Word on the street was Jim Buck, who's 80 years old, was going to retire. Tracy had already put his name out there, said he intended to seek that vacancy. And then the whole redistricting thing happened. Jim Buck decided to run. Tracy stayed in the race. Paula Copenhaver, who's the challenger to Spencer Deary, actually ran for that seat when Spencer first won it. She's a county chairwoman in Fountain County, Indiana. So some of them have been around, but then you look up in Northwest Indiana, Trevor DeVries. I'd never heard of this guy's name.
This is in Gary, the Gary area.
Up in that area. He was going to run for state representative. Actually, the old seat where I'm from, where my parents still live in Lake County. And then when redistricting happened, he shifted gears and said, hey, that might be an easier race to win. So it is a mixed bag. And I think the results will probably be a mixed bag. That's what I have said from the beginning. If you listen to the folks who are setting expectations, the over under depends on how low or how high you want to set the expectations to make the other side look bad or your side look good.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Hey, I should know for people watching at home, because someone did point out, obviously the color scheme is going to vary from race to race on this in terms of which candidate, but the incumbent has an asterisk next to their name. So if you're looking for who the incumbent is on the side there.
All right. So we don't have a consistency where the incumbent is always yellow.
And for the
challenger is always red.
Since you'll probably say his name a lot today, it's Durnell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's how you pronounce it.
That's a fun
That's
one.
very helpful, Pete. Hey, Pete, can I ask you one other thing? I don't want to keep it too long, but you said that most of the ads here are not on redistricting. What is it doesn't support Trump enough? Like, what's the, I don't want you to generalize. I know it's 7 races that they're all in different parts of the state, but like, what are they talking about?
It's your standard primary fare. The incumbent is insufficiently conservative. They're out of step with Donald Trump, which is code for redistricting.
Yeah.
But I think polling, either there's a slight majority in favor of redistricting, so it's not enough to put it in the ad, or it's lopsided in the other direction and they haven't touched it. I mean, Michelle Davis is a great example. She has been quoted in the media saying when she goes door to door, no one brings up redistricting organically. No one. It's not a topic of conversation. So of course, some of these ads have focused on, 1 or 2 votes. The gas tax is a big one that has come up a lot. There's a bill on prohibiting Chinese interests from buying farmland in Indiana. It's being completely misconstrued. But as you all know, you throw something out to see if it sticks on the wall, and sometimes it does.
The Chinese are trying to buy Indiana.
Yeah, and I heard Travis Holdman at an event the other day talk, and he's like, this ad about me supporting people buying Chinese land, I don't even like Chinese food. Why would I support them buying land?
It's just, yeah.
Anyway, hey Pete, let's take a step back here. Mike Braun's only been governor a hot second, it feels like. How would you, compare his governorship to Mitch Daniels and Mike Pence?
Well, his has been a much more fraught relationship with the legislature, and every governor goes through this. They
even though same party.
Yeah, they come in and they're saying, "I'm the executive. I'm the big dog in town. The voters just picked me statewide. This is my agenda. Now go forth." And the legislature has a knack for saying, "Hey, we were here before you. We're going to be here after you. Have fun." And Braun has dealt with that, and Mitch dealt with that. Eric Holcomb dealt with that. Mike Pence dealt with that. They all deal with it, though, in different ways. Some bring in the legislature, negotiate a lot, come to compromise. In some cases, that's what Braun has done. But I really think this issue, Mike Braun has leaned into to get into the good graces of the Trump administration and to elevate his profile.
Well,
I mean, he's looking at tonight.
Well, it's funny you say that. I got a sense that early on he wasn't digging the redistricting fight, and then he got caught being late to the party, and now he's been playing catch up. Am I overreading it, or is that a fair?
No, I think
assessment?
he was slow to the game, maybe not privately, but if you were listening to these state senators from the very beginning, there was very little appetite for this. And y'all have probably seen, the Washington Post and other outlets and independent sources have rated our congressional map as, quote, the least gerrymandered, which I hate that that's the bar, but they claim that it's the least gerrymandered in the country because it is drawn very well. It maintains those communities of interest. It respects existing boundaries. Only 8 of our 92 counties are split between 2 congressional districts, which is a rather Herculean task when the deviation in population is literally 2 people between the largest and smallest district. But they're just, that appetite didn't exist. And I think he felt that. He probably heard that. He knew that. And then the vice president came here twice to start twisting arms, to start making the case. And things started shifting. The online
Trump had the state senators
louder.
come to the White House. I mean, they've been involved in this. Like
they have been very involved. And then the president had most of these challengers into the Oval Office just about a month ago for photo ops. I mean, it reminded me of the old Reagan or George W. Bush days, right? Where they would bring candidates in and film some footage that they could use in their campaign ads. It had that very same feel for state Senate seats in Indiana. It's absolutely wild to watch.
What is this?
I was just going to say that Pete, you mentioned that, and there's an interesting race, the Greg Good race that you mentioned earlier. I know that there was actually an ad that was run by the Trump endorsed challenger Brenda Wilson, run on her behalf, because there's a third candidate in the race named Alexandra Wilson. This is the 38th state Senate seat, and so essentially the ad goes back and forth talking about little descriptions of Greg and Alexandra and Greg. Who cares? Support Brenda. And at the end, it's a picture of Brenda Wilson with President Trump in the Oval Office. And it's just interesting trying to navigate a three-way primary. And most of these are head-to-head races, but there are a couple that are three-way, and you do wonder if actually the incumbents in those races might have a better chance, just on the off chance that, potential opposition is more split.
Get split, yeah. Well, and that race you mentioned is interesting. It's probably been the most dramatic because of the dual Wilson candidacies, and the idea that the second, is it Alexandra? Is that
it's Alexandra. Yeah.
That she got in at the behest of some friends of Greg Good just to confuse voters. Now she denies it. It ended up going through like the election board. I think it actually ended up getting to court. At one point as well. This whole thing was a huge mess. Jim Bop was involved, probably a name familiar.
Jim Unskinny Bop. We know Jim.
Jim Bop.
Jim. And he was involved in this whole thing, arguing against it. So, but she ended up remaining on the ballot. We'll see how that vote splits. But it has been a roller coaster for sure.
Pete, look, up until about the end of the Evan Bayh era, Indiana was a fairly competitive two-party state with Republicans usually in the advantage, but it was it was two-party competition. They were 55-45. Those were the blowouts. Obviously, things have shifted a bit. Are we seeing, and what we've seen in other states where one party has sort of just taken over, you start to see, politics abhors a vacuum. So you see a new divide. Right? The state of Texas is a great example of this, where basically you have 2 Republican parties now. We'll see if the Democratic Party gets strong enough to take advantage of that moment. Are we seeing 2 Indiana Republican parties now? That this is the new divide in Indiana? It is sort of the populists and the institutionalists, but they're all under the banner of the elephant?
Well, first, to the beginning of that, I think that shift started in 2010, really when our politics became nationalized. And that is when, the state house started to get their majorities and supermajority. The Senate already had it around that time, and they've been able to maintain it since then, I think because they're delivering on the promises that they make in campaigns. To the second part about the split, we have a pretty good track record for the most part of uniting post-primary. And I think maybe it's just that Hoosier hospitality part of us, that gene that we all have. Right. We come together. There's hard feelings.
Indiana nice. Yeah. A little bit of that.
In the immediate aftermath, but people come together. Now, it didn't necessarily happen in 2012 with Richard Murdoch and Dick Lugar.
Right.
We saw how that turned out. Joe Donnelly ultimately was elected. But I think Democrats struggle because of the nationalization of our politics and how far left Democrats have moved nationally. It's hard to break through in this state, even if there are quote unquote moderate Democrats, to say, hey, I'm moderate. I'm not like AOC. I'm not
But
like Mom
the
Donnie.
national brand is hard to shake.
It's very hard to shake, and it takes. And maybe some of this $13 million could have helped them out.
Yeah.
Hey, Pete Buttigieg had to leave the state to have a shot at even talking about winning somewhere
That's a
else,
great
right?
point.
I mean,
to
be clear, his husband's from Michigan, so they moved to Michigan, but then there was chatter about him being a Senate candidate, and he never would have run again in Indiana after losing.
No.
He lost in 2010 as a statewide candidate.
Yeah, he ran for state treasurer. Yep.
I will go back to the point Pete made when we brought him on, which was a 5,000% increase in spending in these state Senate races from normal. Pete, see, the man, if you're in Indiana and you want to talk about Republican politics, you got to talk to Pete. He is the man. Thank you, Pete.
He's also
this has
just
been
a
great.
very,
And
just a lovely human.
Yeah.
He's a lovely
I told
human.
Chuck when we texted yesterday, Cillizza, if you remember this, my first time on the Daily Rundown was with you and Jay.
Yeah, I do remember.
So
This
has been great.
Yep.
And Pete, you have been going to World Series. This is your thing. How many straight World Series have you attended in person now?
Last year was my 20th consecutive. I go to one game every year. I absolutely love it.
So cool.
21 is just around the corner. It's a great tradition.
Sometimes and did you even do the COVID year? Did you do Dodgers Rays?
Yes, I was there.
You did the COVID.
So Pete, we'll host you when the Nationals are hosting the World Series. So we'll see you in DC.
I'll take you up on that.
In 2097. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, guys.
See you, Pete.
All right, so we have been we were getting deep into Indiana stuff with Pete. Kyle Kondik, who has. I always think when we bring Kyle on, he should have a like actual crystal ball. I feel like that would be badass because he is the Sabatos crystal ball at UVA Center for Politics. Kyle, sorry to keep you waiting, man. We had to get that Pete seat. We had to get that Pete seat thing in there.
I have a canned line in speeches that I give because I tell people at the end of the speech, I say, hey, sign up for the crystal ball. And I say, you could Google us. The first thing that'll show up for the crystal ball is like an eBay ad for an actual crystal ball. You scroll down a little bit, and then you get to us. So anyway,
I like it.
Well,
we should
don't you get to a former candidate for Congress then?
Oh yeah,
you have that issue too.
That's in Skelly territory. That's a Virginia former candidate.
That's
right. Now an online influencer crystal ball.
Deep cut. That was a deep cut. Deep primary cut there.
All right, Kyle, tell us. We ended with Pete Seed about sort of what's winning, like what we got 7 of these contested races. Like, what does winning for Trump look like? Because we're obviously interested. I think you obviously are too. Like, this is interesting because it's Donald Trump has put his sort of political capital and money on the line and said, like, we need to beat these people. Do they need to beat all 7 of them? Do they need to beat a simple majority of them? Like, what's the bar, I guess, do you think?
Well, I kind of wonder if there's not a specific number on it, but it may just be that, I think part of what's going on here is that Donald Trump is trying to push off being a lame duck. And he is incredibly influential within Republican Party politics, probably the most influential president within his own party in terms of picking candidates and that sort of thing. Is there even really a comparison?
You have to go back, Kyle. I think you have to go back to FDR.
I was
going to say,
FDR was literally
there's
the
no
last
even
president
FDR,
to do this. Yeah.
Even though an FDR in 1938 had a real bad time of that, actually.
That's right.
Oh, it didn't go well all the time, right?
I think only one of the candidates he opposed lost, and it wasn't one of the senators. It was a House member from New York. But again, maybe I'm missing something, but in my reading of American history, you didn't have like Ronald Reagan, even like really popular, successful presidents, or even Lyndon Johnson was like a political animal. I don't know if he was, intervening in this kind of granular sort of way.
Well,
part of it is just to send a message like, hey, don't mess with me. When I tell you something to do, you do it. And
well, it's interesting. You're right. But usually these national polls didn't get involved because it was, don't punch down. Right? That was usually the idea. Don't punch down, punch up, and being the president, you're always punching down.
Well, and look, this president doesn't really, he just hasn't done it that way. And so he's been very involved. He's very involved when he wasn't in office, but he's effectively been the leader of the party for 10 years now, basically. And I also think about this in the context of what's going on nationally. You've got, the Calais decision last week, basically, doing away with protections for majority minority districts. You're seeing all this activity in the South about whether Republicans might try to draw out, Black Democrats in certain places. That all ripple effects down the line. But, if we come out of tonight and Trump is seen as the victor here, and again, I don't necessarily know what number you would put on it.
We've decided that if he wins at
Simple
least
majority.
4, give him
I think
4 or
that's
7.
That's probably fair.
That's the fair mark.
But when if the White House calls South Carolina and Louisiana tomorrow,
right?
They say, hey, like if you don't go along with us, we're going to punish you for it.
Such an important point. Chuck opened Kyle talking about this, and 2 weeks from now, Massey in Kentucky, and it really is. It's like, dude, politics is a copycat game, right? Everyone pays attention to what everyone else is doing. So if you see, let's just say Trump back candidates win all 7 of these races. You are exactly right. I would be not surprised in the least
all change
to see Georgia or South Carolina be like, you know what? We're actually going to open our map up again. I mean, that's just how it's,
Georgia just can't legally do it. Georgia's too far.
That's
down
right.
the line.
Kemp said that. That's right.
And Kemp has,
bucked Trump.
Well, he has, but Kemp is also, he plans to try to do a special session before he leaves office. He did say that. Because it's possible he's replaced by a Democrat.
Yeah, they don't want to risk divided government.
He's doing this redraw, I think, in December is sort of the time, right? Isn't that the sense? I believe he sort of
before he leaves office, at the very least, they'll call a special session.
I don't have any inside information on that, but that would make sense to me because also if you do it before the election, you have to deal with the political fallout of it in November. So it'll just be this kind of stinky lame duck session thing, which is always kind of atrocious. But I mean, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because he'll be like, can't punish me.
Right. But you're right. I mean, it 4 or 5 victories tonight.
Yeah.
And, there's not going to be hesitation in Tennessee, South Carolina, Alabama. Now, by the way, I think it's going to lead to potential huge statewide turnout backlash. Like, I think Doug Jones in Alabama suddenly has a boxer's chance. I think that you're going to see black turnout for a Senate race in Mississippi for an African-American candidate. So spike in ways that perhaps you wouldn't have seen. It's that would be the only thing I think Republicans are the aggressiveness, right? They won't even wait an extra 2 years. That could really supercharge black turnout. It really could.
Hey, just to bump in here because I just see some chatter in the chat, if you will, about sort of the situation. It's like someone was like, "Why are there so few results?" For an hour and 11 minutes after polls closed in most of Indiana's notoriously slow. That's just kind of the different states put different number of resources and have different administrative setups, and Indiana is one of the slower ones. Ohio, by comparison, maybe this is a good opportunity actually to segue and talk a little about Ohio because Kyle literally wrote
15 minutes
book
away
about
from
it.
Polls close, right?
Polls are going to close there very soon. Ohio is very fast. It reports a lot of early vote and is usually pretty good pacing wise as the night wears on. And Kyle, I was curious. Obviously, whereas in Indiana we get to talk about sort of Trump and his role in this. In Ohio, I don't think we actually have many races where that is clear. Only in the sense that the Ohio governor's race, which could have had that element of Trump's influence, it was so influential that everyone got out.
Yeah, Trump won the primary many months ago. Dave Yost was state auditor for 8 years and then state attorney general for 8 years, and it was he was
ready to go
to run for governor, and he got bigfooted out of the race by Ramaswamy. Actually, John Husted, who's in the Senate now, sort of the idea when he joined Mike DeWine's ticket for the 2018 race is
he
that
was the governor
he's
and waiting.
Be the guy who could step up to run.
And didn't he even Secretary of State for 8 years? He wanted to be governor too. Everybody wanted to be governor.
And they tried
Jim Tressel.
They tried Tressel too, right, Kyle?
There was some because Houston went to the Senate, so there was a vacancy for lieutenant governor, and so the former Ohio State coach, former president of Youngstown State University, Jim Tressel came on. There was sort of a little bit of buzz that he might run for governor, but
it was the Mike DeWine generated buzz. Actually, I think.
Mike DeWine wanted
go
that.
anywhere. He wanted it,
and I just don't. Obviously, nothing ever came of it. I don't think. I mean, curious to see what sort of like protest vote there is against Ramaswamy tonight. But
by the way, I think he has signed a death warrant for his political campaign in Ohio. This attack on Ohio universities has totally become a problem for him. It reminds me, he identified, I actually think probably something that's very fair. Are there too many universities? Could there be some consolidation, right? So he unveils this Doge-like idea to do this. And guess what? It's like trying to close a military base. Oh yeah, we have too many military bases, but don't close the one in my congressional district.
It's like
close
trying
the
to
one
get
in
rid
the
of
other
a sport,
congressional district.
like
I mean,
getting
I
rid of
went
a sport at a university.
And,
it's like
and
everybody's got a
Ohioans,
constituency.
they're very proud of those universities.
Yep. I went to High University in Athens, Ohio, and it's Athens is in the middle of Appalachia. It's the only real blue county in eastern.
Is that right? Is that?
East Ohio,
And I'm
for sure.
guessing that ain't Ramaswamy's idea ain't popular there, is it?
No, I don't think so. And you also, some of the places that are swing counties that probably Amy Acton and Sherrod Brown will need to win have big colleges in them, like Portage, where Kent State is in Northeast Ohio. That's one I always watch that used to be bluer and now is more of a red county. Wood County, just directly south of Toledo. That's where Bowling Green is. That's another big state school. That's another key swing county. So that is something to think about. The other thing I was thinking about, so Acton was the health department director for a time under Governor DeWine. He had a Democrat in that job, and so she was very, very, very visible during COVID response.
My God, Mike DeWine called her. Some superheroes wear capes, others wear white robes. I mean, the DeWine endorsement, unofficial endorsement of her is pretty strong.
Yeah, and it also leads this interesting question because it's almost like who's the conservative in this race, even though in terms of like not on the political spectrum, but like who's promising a lot of change and who's kind of more the staid candidate. And actually, it may very well be Acton. And I just wonder about that dynamic in the general election, as Ramaswamy has a lot of kind of big ideas that sometimes he has to pull back on, and maybe Acton isn't quite that way. So just a dynamic to watch.
I think Chuck and I have talked about the Ohio thing. We've talked about it. Feels like there's something going on there, right? I mean, Sherrod is ahead right now. Now he's a known commodity, but I was surprised that Acton was ahead of Ramaswamy.
I think this is about Ramaswamy's kind of polarizing.
Yeah.
And it's just, he stylistically doesn't really match Ohio, right? Like, think of the previous Ohio governors.
Yeah,
he's not
DeWine.
He's not
George Voinovich.
No, I mean, Kyle, you know the state better than we do, but
I mean, one of the striking things about the two senators now, Vance and not Vance anymore, but John Husted is kind of out of that establishment school. But Vance won in 2022, and Bernie Moreno won in 2024, and they were they were sort of Trump people,
outsiders, yeah.
Yes. And but the other Republicans that say DeWine is the definitional kind of establishment style Republican. John Kasich was a bit of a rabble rouser when he first came in. But sort of steadied the ship and served in Congress for a long time. George Voinovich, Rob Portman, the Tafts, so it's a changing of the guard, and Ramaswamy's like turning it up even more. And it's like, is he maybe just a little too much
and we were talking about that with Indiana too. It's like the difference between Todd Young and Jim Banks. They're just different tonally. All right. Everyone needs to follow Kyle, at Crystal Ball at the Center for Politics at UVA. And I'm not just saying that because I want my kid to go to UVA. I'm saying it because it's a really, there's
some wonderful universities to pick from in the state of Ohio. We were just talking about them.
Absolutely. It's true. I mean, if they're still around.
My wife is an alma mater of Miami of Ohio.
Kyle, before I let you go, likelihood that the Senate and the Gov race go in different directions.
So I'd be surprised, although there was a difference in 2018. Sherrod Brown won pretty easily, and Mike DeWine won the governorship. But some of the polling has suggested that Acton is actually doing a little bit better than Sherrod Brown, which is kind of surprising to me. Yeah. So I wouldn't completely rule it out. They'll probably track pretty close, but that's just a kind of a fascinating dynamic.
Ohio's never had a woman governor, correct?
So Nancy Hollister was governor for 11 days after.
Right, but not an elected.
Not elected.
Never elected.
Right. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. You're the man, Kyle. Go follow Kyle on Twitter and all the good stuff. He trust me, it's well worth your time.
Glad I could come on. Thanks, guys.
Good to see you, brother.
Kyle. Go ahead, Skelly.
Chris,
yeah.
I was just going to quickly jump in because one of the races I was watching tonight, besides the Indiana state Senate races, was also a primary involving Jim Baird, who's a congressman from the 4th Congressional District in the western part of Indiana. And we're starting to get some votes in there. It's still only about 18% of the estimated vote reporting. But he's got a challenger state legislator named Craig Haggard. And Baird is endorsed by Trump, and so I think there was an expectation that that'd be enough for Baird. But Baird didn't raise very much money, and there was actually an outside group that spent a couple $100,000 attacking Baird over his support for the Dignidad Act, that Dignity Act, that's like sort of a bipartisan immigration immigration reform bill that Congress is currently looking at. And I was just curious, Baird hadn't raised very much money. Would there be a little bit of a surprise? But so far, so good for him here early.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's keep talking a little Ohio as we and Skelly, by the way, I always say this. Jump in if and when we have calls, but let's talk about it was a good transition. Yeah, Jesse Balmer from the USA Today Network, Ohio Bureau, Columbus Dispatch. Hey, I mean, look at this. This is that's a bar if ever I've seen a bar.
Well, at a victory party, right?
Yes, right outside where Vivek Ramaswamy is going to celebrate his victory over a lesser known challenger.
We were just talking about that, Jesse. Are you? I mean. You had Dave Yost, you had Tressel at some point at least floated. Are you surprised that Ramaswamy, who does feel very much of an outsider to Ohio Republican politics, sort of had just walked in, or is this just power of Trump?
It's a little bit the power of Trump. It's also Ramaswamy really barnstormed the state last year. He went everywhere. He was talking to everyone. And he won the Ohio Republican Party's endorsement, which is typically a more establishment kind of a group. But he's also building on J.D. Vance's victory, who was kind of your outsider, untypical candidate. He's building on Bernie Moreno, who won the last cycle. And so he's more in the vein of those kind of candidates than your Mike DeWine or your Dave Yost or your John Husted. But if he would have asked me at the end of 2024, who's going to be the governor candidate for Ohio, I would have thought it was John Husted.
We were just talking about that. I mean, John Husted would have thought it was John Husted.
John Husted's been planning for this for over a decade. It's it was like Mike DeWine. When Mike DeWine finally became governor, it had been an office he was aiming for 30 years. And I remember I said that on election night. And then Mike DeWine wrote me a note. He goes, "Thanks for noticing." He was like, I did, because he cared about it so much. That was ultimately, he had served all these other offices, but the office he cared and wanted the most was governor. And I know Husted a little bit, and I think that's really Husted's ambition. He'd rather be governor than senator. Now, he's not going to say no to the Senate seat when he realized he kind of had no choice.
Right. I think if we could give him some truth serum, I think John Husted was really working towards that. He was the Ohio House Speaker. He was the Ohio Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor to Mike DeWine, and they famously got together in 2018 when they were running against one another, and that was kind of seen as a power ticket in the GOP that year. So yeah, he was building to the governor's race, but that's, like you said, the Senate's not a bad.
There was a guy named Adam Putnam in Florida who had worked for 20 years. The same what you just described, what John Husted did. He did the same thing. He served in Congress, then he came back, held
State
statewide
insurance commissioner, right, Chuck?
Ag commissioner.
That's right. Because he's big in the citrus industry.
And then Ron DeSantis showed up and said, "Donald Trump likes me," and the guy's career is over, just over. I don't even know. I think
best laid plans.
Yeah, it is how Trump has really upended a lot of people's political careers in states like Ohio, Indiana, and Florida.
Jesse, can you talk a little bit I don't think we mentioned it when we were talking to Kyle Kondik, but I don't think a lot of people know much about Amy Acton, who is going to be the Democratic nominee for governor. Can you just talk about her? Chuck mentioned DeWine praised her during COVID. Can you just talk about her background and how she wound up being, because, we always heard Tim Ryan, former congressman, ran for president, right? Who is she? What's because most of the data I've seen suggests she's ahead.
Yeah, so Amy Acton was the state health director during the initial months of the COVID-19 pandemic. She was actually Mike DeWine's last cabinet pick, which was interesting because obviously DeWine is a Republican and she is a Democrat, but he wanted someone who was going to focus on public health and wanted kind of a nonpartisan person in that role. And so she really came to fame during these daily COVID press conferences where she was there in a white doctor's jacket with Mike DeWine right there, and they issued various orders, and she was seen as kind of like a reassuring presence for people who are following the COVID orders. Folks were really livid about the various closures, so she had some protests at her house because of that. But really, her term there was pretty short-lived. But just that name ID and that kind of, I know you, I was in your living room consoling you during a tough time, is really what she's been able to build upon.
I brought up the college stuff that I know, look, Democrats, on how Democrats like to have a field day. They had a field day during March Madness. I imagine during the fall, every
football program,
every Maction Tuesday and Wednesday. Trust me, us gamblers know about Maction Tuesdays. But how big? It feels like that was a big mistake that Ramaswamy made, and one that may be a big part of the fall campaign. Am I overreading it?
I think it's certainly one that's going to be brought up because, like you were saying, these are major employers for certain parts of the state. You had Kent State University's presidents kind of speak out about that, saying, like, we're already a center of excellence, which was the term that Ramaswamy used. It wasn't a direct attack, but we all kind of knew what they were talking about there. And so I guess we'll see. It also kind of runs contrary to former Republican Jim Rhodes' vision of having a public university within a certain mileage of every Ohioan. And so
I saw Mike DeWine has separated himself from the plan by saying, no, the vision was every Ohioan should be within 30-minute commute of being able to get a higher education degree.
Yeah, and Mike DeWine has really stepped in for a lot of kind of struggling universities. There's particularly one in the Dayton area that is in some trouble, and he's trying to keep it afloat. So that's certainly a different approach that Ramaswamy is going with there. So we'll see how much that plays going forward.
Hey, Jesse, what is we have an impression of Ramaswamy from the presidential and then his advocacy for Trump, but I don't know if the perception I have of him, which is kind of like glib and, MAGA, it seems like he's not emphasized that as well. Like, what is he trying to sell himself as in that state to voters?
Yeah, I think he has learned a little bit from that presidential campaign. I think there were a lot of kind of comments that he made off the cuff that people dissected and, they went viral and he got a lot of reaction to. You saw his very first ad was featuring his family narrated by his wife. And so kind of the softer side of Vivek Ramaswamy. So I think he's really trying to emphasize that. Like I said, he went to every county last year and really kind of made those connections. So he is hustling in the state, but these kind of comments that were indicative of the presidential campaign are still popping up in the governor's campaign, to your point about the community college or the colleges generally.
Yeah. Is he, look, I know DeWine's endorsed him. But what is his relationship with the institutional wing of the Ohio Republican Party? Because he's got to govern with them. I mean, are we going to, let's say we have a Governor Ramaswamy, you're going to have Republican control of the state legislature. Is that going to be a tense relationship?
So it's interesting because he chose us as running mate, the Ohio Senate President, Rob McCauley, and so that indicates he's trying to make connections there.
Yeah.
But if you're going after universities, or if we're making tax cuts that are going to affect local schools who are then going to call their state lawmaker and have issues with it, we'll see how that relationship goes. But Ohio's had a Republican governor and a Republican-controlled legislature for more than a decade now, and there's still conflicts.
No.
Right.
And there probably will be. All right, Jesse Balmer from the Ramaswamy Victory Party. And yes, folks, if you thought there was any drama about Vivek Ramaswamy going to win, he is very likely going to win. Yes. So Jesse picked the right place. Columbus Dispatch. Jesse, thank you.
Thank you.
Jesse. Good to meet you.
See ya.
Hey guys, I was going to do a quick rundown of
sort of
where things
Please
stand.
do. I was going to ask.
In Indiana, let's go back to Indiana.
Well, we're going to be talking about Indiana. So.
And hey, Jeffrey, can you explain? I just do me the favor, because I see on my YouTube chat, and I would guess it's on DDHQ and Chuck too. People are like, Are the red counties that we're looking at, did Trump endorse? No. Like, explain to people the color scheme, what they're seeing, and just talk about the incumbent thing again, and then run through it so people know what they're looking at.
Yes. So the incumbents, we're talking about Indiana and these state Senate races, these 7 in particular, where President Trump endorsed a challenger. The incumbents have an asterisk or a star next to their names, but the colors are going to vary from race to race. It's an automated process. Though this, I will say that tonight has been a reminder that perhaps that's something we should consider in the future. Is that if there is,
I've made a note. That's all right. I've made it.
Come on, Tranter.
Like anyway, no. Hey, we're all learning here.
Explain when people see this, the Tracy Powell James.
We've called one winner here. Do you want to say which winner we've called? We've got a winner. DDHQ is called the 19th.
Oh, we just yes. Hey there, I'm pulling it up now. Yes. Actually we have so Trump, President Trump has got one down.
That's a win for Trump.
One. So this is going to be a win for President Trump. You have it's coming up. We have the
there it is.
Not close, by the way.
Not close. In the 19th district, State Senator Travis Holdman Decision Desk HQ is projecting that Blake Fichter has defeated Holdman. What's interesting about this race is that Fichter actually briefly dropped out of the race because actually there are a couple
Ross Perot vibe.
So Holdman was going to retire and then reconsidered. No, that was Walker. Sorry, there's these situations. Holdman has been there for a long time. Fichter was like, well, I'm not getting a lot of support. And then he was going to withdraw from the race. And so Fichter got Trump's endorsement and got back in the race, was still on the ballot. And then it looks like he's going to end up winning this one.
And he's going to win by
the way, I'm trying to do some math here. I'm looking at this race and it looks like we're going to have, maybe 18,000 total votes. Okay. So we've spent $13 million on what may not even be a total of 120,000 total votes in these 7 primaries, right?
Hey,
I mean,
the amount of money spent per vote is going to be
that per vote. That's going to make Tom Steyer blush.
Tom Steyer's got more work to do. He's got
when you were saying he's going to win big, it's like he is. At the same time, he has 2,000 more votes than the other guy. It's remarkable.
Right.
We're gonna in 1 minute we're gonna bring in Kayla Dwyer from the Indianapolis Star. But Skelly, can you just run through the 7 real quick, just like where we are?
Yes. So that's the one race we have a result in terms of the other seats where we actually have some meaningful vote. Greg Good, who is one of the incumbents that Trump has opposed, is still leading. So that's a race where, and he's a little bit above 50%. Again, not a ton of the vote in, but nonetheless, we're not expecting that many votes in total there. To do your math, Chuck, that one we're projecting even fewer votes. Yeah. So that's
may not get to 100,000, may not get to 120,000.
Yes, I would say that another senator who's clearly in trouble, state senator. Let's be just so people understand, because they're U.S. senators, but state senator in this Indiana context who's in trouble is Jim Buck. Who is trailing with about 40% of the vote in. Yeah. He's trailing. And this is another guy actually who was going to retire and then reconsidered after the whole redistricting shebang. So Powell, Tracy Powell, who is his challenger, could be en route here to an up or to a victory.
By the way, it looks like so far incumbents, it's about even split here. Incumbents are up in about half, and challengers are either winning or up about half. It looks like Trump's going to have at least a defensible night at worst.
And I'm just keeping track, and just so.
And hey, I would just add that we just got some votes from the northwestern part of the state where polls close an hour later, we were talking with Pete Seed about how to pronounce this guy's name. Oh wait, that did not load. I apologize. Dan, is it Dan Denul?
Denul. It's a silent C at the end.
Yes, he is down big in the initial vote in this district here against Trevor DeVries. Yep. So this might be another
good for Trump right now.
Again, I was going to say this is another Trump endorsed challenger who's well ahead.
So the one incumbent that we see comfortably ahead is Good, who's in a 3-way race against 2 Wilsons.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there's a couple races where we don't have much of the
Enough
vote at
vote.
all.
All right,
So
well, let's bring
so
Kayla
a lot of
in.
question marks still.
Yeah, let's bring
Yeah.
Kayla in. Kayla Dwyer, the Indianapolis Star. Let's bring her in to talk about all of this if we can. Hi, Kayla.
Hello.
Hey,
Welcome.
amazing! Good branding by the
Thanks.
Star. Yeah, excellent
Strategic,
job. Hope you get a raise for that. So you heard us just talking. So we've got one. I'm keeping, because I always forget this. I'm keeping kind of a tally here. We got one Trump pickup. That means we have 6 more to go. 2 look pretty good for the Trump endorsed challenger. 1 looks pretty good for the incumbent, and then the others we don't know. What's your going into this? Did you have a good night, medium night, bad night for Trump and kind of the party as it relates to these 7?
I really don't like making predictions, but the sense I would get from talking to voters is there's kind of a mixed bag in terms of how much they think Trump endorsing in these races really matters to them or will sway them. Of course, people will say that, and then they go to the polls, and who knows the decisions they actually make when push comes to shove. But I was hearing a lot of mixed reactions to it's not just the Trump endorsement we're talking about, but all the money and ads that have come with that, and that Hoosiers are not used to seeing in these very hyper local races. And by the way, very sophisticated doomsday dramatic splashy ads that they can kind of tell are boilerplate, and it's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But at the same time, obviously Trump is really popular here, and he wins the state by 17% every time. So, you have this kind of both things going on at once. So I have come into this thinking it could be a mixed bag.
Okay.
It's interesting. These state Senate races, it used to be just about making sure you were on the right street corner with your big sort of oversized sort of Home Depot put together sign, right? That was probably the biggest expense you would have other than your direct mail piece, right?
Right. I mean, they're getting on TV, unheard of.
Totally.
Yeah. You're probably mailers are probably the most expensive thing you would normally have. But now so not only 13.5 million from these outside groups on the pro redistricting side, and then the Senate Majority Campaign Committee, which defends incumbents, they've spent almost $3 million or something like that this cycle, which is more than they've spent this century in any other election cycle.
This century. I love it. I mean,
It's so true.
That's more than they've spent this century.
In this millennium.
It's still, we are 26 years into this century. It isn't yesterday anymore.
Right. It's a quarter century. Yeah.
That's right.
Kayla,
That's a significant stat.
What is voters' response to all this? Because Pete Seat, who's on at the top of the show, he said, I just keep citing this because it's fascinating. He said it's a 5,000% spending increase from the last time these states. I mean, it's stunning, right? It was 500,000. Now it's 13.5 million, right?
Yes.
Do voters, I just assume voters don't pay a hell of a lot of attention to redistricting fights that don't happen, right? They don't have a new map. Are the voters why in the hell are we seeing so many TV commercials? Why am I getting so much mail? What's the reaction just been among your average casual voter?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible for them not to notice, and they're definitely noticing. In fact, honestly, they notice the TV ads and the mailers more than they think about the Trump endorsement, because that's what's on their TV screens, that's what's coming in their mailboxes. Like I said earlier, a lot of them have been turned off, or at least I should say, just voters I've talked to, which are a lot, have been feeling kind of turned off by it, just because it has that DC nastiness ring to it, and that's really not what we do in our local elections here. But at the same time, the flip side of that coin is obviously it's having an impact. They're talking about it, right, which is ultimately the goal. And it even has I actually encountered a voter while I was door knocking with a candidate who was like, so are you liberal, to one of the most conservative senators in our state, because they saw a TV ad that's calling him liberal. So they're remembering what they're seeing, and they're remembering the fact that these ads are,
Kayla, what I'm curious about is what kind of psychological impact is this going to have on the legislature itself? I assume this is going to change. It is, what what level of decorum there was, or sort of how there was the Indiana way, right? And I'm guessing that this is probably
it's probably gone the way of the Virginia way.
Yeah, this is going to usher in a new way of politicking. That my guess is this is the beginning of a new trend rather than an outlier. That's probably that's what has happened in other states, that the minute you bring in the national nasty, it doesn't leave, it stays.
Well, I'm of two minds about that, because I mean, you could argue that we already had a taste of the national nasty, like back when the redistricting was going on, and these senators were getting threats to their homes. They were getting blasted on social media by all these Trump allies, and that left a really sour taste in a lot of people's mouths here. And going into the legislative session that we then had after redistricting, I didn't notice. I mean, obviously there were hurt feelings, but things still, business as usual still went on. Okay. Now, but you might have a point when it comes to the next election cycle, but there's still a majority in the Indiana State House that just is really opposed to this idea of being told what to do by DC. And I think that's, we're talking about 8 races, right, out of 50 seats. And so I think that still the dominant mood at our state house will be like, we do what we want to do,
And we do expect that if Trump wins 4, 5, 6 of these races, we're going to see a leadership change in the state Senate, or is that not guaranteed?
Yeah, right.
Well, that's the goal that they have, but I'm not convinced they would still even then have the numbers to do it. I'd have to do the math, but Senator Bray.
So they may spend all this money and not get
rid of Rod Bray, and Donald Trump goes out and attacks Rod Bray publicly multiple times. Yeah.
Maybe they don't get rid of Rod Bray, who's very popular among his caucus, but I mean, if you get the Senate Republicans vote against redistricting was a margin of 2 votes, right? So if you get 5 Trump loyalists in there, then the next time DC asks for something, maybe they get it.
Right. Mm-hmm. Hey, I have a question, Kayla, just broadly, not just about the legislature, but one of the things we're thinking of, is how these Republican parties across the country are changing, right? So certainly when I was coming up, and I think Chuck Skelly's too young for all this, but like when I thought of Ohio, it was like George Voinovich and Portman and DeWine. Like DeWine was like the conservative, and like John Kasich, right? Yeah. And now it's Ramaswamy's going to be the gubernatorial nominee, right? Houston is a little bit of a throwback, but that came up weirdly because Vance was the VP. You have Vance winning that race. You have like what like in Indiana, what does it look like? Because I won't go back to 2012, Richard Murdoch, Dick Lugar. That felt like a moment. Mm-hmm. Like, where is the state now? Is it Dick Lugar still hanging on? Is it Richard Murdoch? Is that the fight we're seeing? Like we see in Ohio, there's a changing of the guard. Is there a changing of the guard in Indiana? Whether it's at the state legislative level or the like national Republican level.
It's definitely, I wouldn't say the changing of the guard has fully transitioned. I mean, you have people that are in positions of power that are of that new guard, but I wouldn't say the positions that they hold are all that powerful, if that makes sense. Like the leaders of the legislature are still more of that oldish guard.
Like a Mitch Daniels kind of vibe.
And toward Mitch Daniels, not quite Mitch Daniels,
right?
But
well, there's very few of him. Yeah,
he's kind of a unicorn, but I shouldn't say unicorn, but
he's one of one. He is in his own way. But I just
hey Kayla, what's Well, let's get to Mitt. If Mitch Daniels only could save one state senator, which the one he wants to save?
Well. I don't know if he would pick. He didn't even want to get involved, really. I don't think he said, I will back incumbents if they ask me, but he's not going out of his way to ask people.
No, that's what was my intent. And then the other one was there was somebody Pence was going to help because apparently it was somebody that was very helpful to Pence when he was governor. And he's like, the guy's a good conservative.
That was Jim Buck. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Jim
he's like,
what? Suffering now. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's local dynamics there though. That's the thing. Like I think in a number of these seats, I don't know that the result can only be explained by the Trump endorsement. Like in the Powell Buck race, for example, Tracy Powell is very well known locally. He got into this race before all the Trump redistricting.
He was already
stuff.
in. Yeah, this was already
yeah.
Right.
So like I think people know him there. Like it might very well be a referent. And Senator Buck has been in there for a long time. People bring up his age, anti-incumbency vibes going on. Like I think there's a lot of reasons why that could be going that way.
And that's I do think that's an important point, because I do think that nuance will get lost in a lot of the national coverage. It will just be like Donald Trump won or Donald Trump lost. But like these races they are nationalized, but they still do have like a little, things that happen in the community do still matter, right?
And it's both and. Like this is going to be a big test of Trump's endorsement power, but also there are these other dynamics.
That's such a good point. Thank you.
Hey, Kayla, this was great. Appreciate it. And hey,
thank you. This is fun.
You've got to be glad that at the very least, Donald Trump made primary night a little more interesting.
Yes, I was actually looking forward to tonight and getting some interesting questions answered.
Right, because we didn't, it wasn't going to be that interesting of a primary night without this.
Exactly.
Right?
No statewide races.
Yeah. So
and I will say, Kayla, just so
Good
you
for
know,
business.
Chuck and I were extolling the virtues of Indianapolis earlier this week on our podcast. Indianapolis, such a great town.
One of the most underrated.
Such a good town. We shouldn't talk about it too much. Yeah, I don't want people to go there. Don't go to Indianapolis.
It is sneakily a really good city hosting a huge event.
Yes,
it is. Look, New Orleans is New Orleans.
There.
I'm not going to sit here and say you're going to ever overtake New Orleans, but I'll take Indianapolis over that other city in the state next door. That's all I'm saying.
Totally agree.
Appreciate that.
Thank
I
you,
love
Kayla.
it here too. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Kayla.
Let's
dive right
Chuck
in.
and I are pro Indianapolis. Let's keep going.
We
get a hard out for
Aaron.
So let's bring Aaron in. Yeah.
Let's bring Aaron Covey of the Cook Political Report right now. Aaron's got a hard out. We want to get as much as we can. And so, look, we just spent 15 minutes in Indiana. Let's go back across the border and go back to Ohio a little bit and focus on what you're watching, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a particularly exciting primary night, I would say. But in Ohio, what we have are two clearly competitive races in the 1st district held by Congressman Greg Landsman, a Democrat in Cincinnati, and the 9th district, which is held by Democrat Marcy Kaptur, a Democrat that's in the Toledo area. These are both top targets for Republicans this cycle. The 9th is going to be more difficult for Democrats to hold. That one we have rated toss-up. Landsman's race we have rated lean D. And so the Republican primary in the 9th district is what I am paying closest attention to right now. But I don't actually think the results of it are going to necessarily have that big of an impact on the general election. And that's because Republicans weren't really able to recruit a strong candidate here. They had Derek Merrin was the nominee last cycle. He is the front runner in this race. There's a couple of other candidates who are in the race. Madison Shaheen, who is the former ICE deputy director. You have Josh Williams, a state representative, as well. Aaliyah Nadeem, a veteran who is running. But Trump hasn't endorsed here. There hasn't been any money raised. So it's a little bit of a black box. And I think Barron probably wins based on name ID alone.
I have to tell you, the thing that surprised, look, Marcy Kaptur's staying power is unbelievable.
Unreal.
And
sorry,
I'm
trying to pull up the results, by the way. This is usually a Skelly thing. Sorry,
no.
Sorry that it's a black screen. I'm doing it, but it's just going slow.
We got you. No. You'll make it work.
Yeah.
Her staying power is remarkable. She's always had very good relationships with local labor leaders in particular. I have to say, I'm shocked she didn't get a primary challenge. And I know that, and part of it maybe there's a realization that she is uniquely the only Democrat that can win this district. But considering the whole generational divide that has been a huge motivating factor for primary challenges this year, are you surprised she ended up not getting one?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I don't think so necessarily. And I think that is because of the same reasons that she has been so successful in these competitive general elections. She has a very strong brand in Northwest Ohio. She has very good constituency services. She's just been around such a long time. I think she is pretty entrenched. And I also think any serious Democratic challenger, recognizes that this is a very tough district to hold and they're not going to get in the way of making that more difficult. But yeah, she also has gotten very lucky with her Republican opponents in the past couple of years. So that's also an important dynamic.
Is that district more Trumpy now than it was? I know it's moving in that
Yes.
direction, but it has gotten even worse for Captor, right?
It has.
Yeah.
So it was a Trump 7 under the old lines in 2024. So Trump carried it by 7 points. She won by like less than a point. And then after redistricting, it moved to Trump 11. So it shifted 4 points to the right, not insignificant. But, you know, in the current political environment, we're assuming things should be at least 4 points better for Democrats overall.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that kind of counters out that shift.
Yeah.
on
Me
the
thinks this
redistricting
could be
side.
her last race.
It could,
You know,
yeah, for sure.
because the
It could be a tough one.
presidential, it's probably a very, I don't know if she can hold it in the presidential.
And I don't know if she would run for re-election in 2028. But it's going to be, it will be very tough in 2028 for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And given what we're seeing, my guess is, I know Ohio's got their own fair districts law and all this stuff, but you know, the redistricting wars, if a state can figure it out, they're going to do it. And there might even be more redistricting that comes after this.
And by the way, I'm just popping up some of these. You know, Ramaswamy is at 87% of the vote, right? I mean, there's only 3% in, but we expect that. I'm just going to, for some people who are wondering about statewides, there were not, to Aaron's point, it is not the sexiest night in the history of Ohio elections. They've had a lot of great nights of being like the swing state. This ain't really it. You know, I mean, you're seeing broadly speaking.
Well, look, we're sitting in Ohio.
Win easily.
We're sitting in Ohio. We've got an expert here in Aaron. So, Aaron, walk me through what are the congressional races that are going to be close in November? We know the 9th because it's been.
Here's the 9th. I just pull up. We don't have votes.
This is the Marcy Captor, where you know, yes, Marcy Captor, who's been in Congress, I think, since the 80s.
That is correct.
Yeah. I mean, she was there when I first
She's
started
the
covering
longest serving
in 92.
woman,
Yeah. Ever now?
I believe ever. Yes. I lose track.
First elected she started serving in 1983. The early 80s.
So she won in the 82 mini Democratic wave.
That's
the
right.
mini Democratic wave of the Reagan recession. Yeah.
Yeah. And she, you know, largely she had a kind of tough primary a little over a decade ago, but up until redistricting in 2022, she had not had competitive races for the most part. And so there was a lot of questions initially. They were like, can she survive this? And then, of course, you had Jared Majewski, who was a incredibly baggage candidate, all the stolen
terrible
dollar
candidate.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he ran against her. She won easily in what should have been a tough year for any Democrat. And then in 24, you know, I think Republicans thought they had a better shot at ousting her, but her opponent then, Derek Marin, who I think is probably going to be her opponent again this cycle, he also had some baggage from his time in the state legislature and his ties to some corruption scandals there that they were able to hammer him with on the airwaves. And this is also a very cheap media market. And so even though Captor's not the strongest fundraiser, she aired a ton of television ads.
Hey, before we get to the first district in Ohio, I want to just pop over and just give an update because Skelly is coming back but is not here. So I'll do this. I've got it pulled up here. This is Indiana State Senate 21. This is Tracy Powell against Jim Buck. We had Kayla from the talking about this from the Indianapolis Star. Powell, who is an endorsed Trump candidate against Buck, the incumbent, has now won decision to HQ. God.
There it is. So that's 2 for Trump. He's 2-0 so far, right?
I don't think I've been on when the music plays.
How cool is that?
Music, huh?
Yeah.
Congrats. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty great. Makes me
pretty professional operation we got here.
Yeah.
So that is just to set, Chuck, to your point, Indiana Senate District 19, Indiana Senate District 21. In both cases, the 2 races that have been called out of those 7, both of the Trump endorsed challengers have beaten incumbent Republican state senators. 5 still to go. Aaron, we can pop back. Chuck, do you have a thought on that? But we can pop back to
No, just real quick. I just want to let people know. Look, a Trump endorsed candidate is winning in the first. A Trump endorsed candidate is losing in the second. So an incumbent is winning in the 6th. A Trump endorsed candidate is winning in the 11th. That's somewhat tight. That's within a couple hundred votes. A incumbent is winning in the 23rd.
Yep.
An incumbent is winning in the 38th, and incumbent is winning in Walker is now, it's gone the other way. A Trump endorsed candidate is winning in the 41st. So look, it looks to me like Trump's going to get 4 and probably more, but it's hard to imagine he's not going to get 4. Let's go back to Ohio.
The only one that looks good, candidly. That's 38.
He's got the
it's a three-way race.
He's got the three-way race. Yeah,
we can go back to Ohio. I'll pull up Ohio. Go ahead.
So let's talk about the generals in November. So we've got the 9th.
I've got the
years
first
past,
pulled up too, Chuck,
in years past, the first, which is Cincinnati, Hamilton County. To me, it's a competitive race when Republicans are having a good year. It's a tougher race when Democrats are having a good year.
It is. So this is another one that they changed in redistricting pretty considerably. It was a seat that Harris won by several points in 2024. Previously, it's now a seat that Trump won by about 2.5 points. So it's tougher. But again, in this cycle, a Trump 2.5 seat shouldn't be too difficult for an incumbent like Landsman to win.
He's a pretty decent candidate. Yeah, I
did a thing with him. He's good. I mean, he gets it. Like this is the old, Aaron. Is this most of the old territory of Steve Chabot? Is that still,
yes,
or is it?
That is correct.
Okay. Who was a Republican for people who are wondering? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's still anchored in Cincinnati. It just goes now. You can see those 2 counties to the right, deeper into Republican territory.
Yeah, over here. Yeah, Clinton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
what do we know about Eric Conroy, who looks like he's going to be, he's ahead right now, I shouldn't say.
Yes. Yeah. He was endorsed by Trump. Initially, he had a bit more of a primary, faced a couple of self-funders, but he should have no trouble winning. He also had a super PAC that spent a little bit of money for him. He hasn't been able to raise a ton of money. But, in theory, I think he has a pretty good profile for this sort of district. He's a veteran. He's a former CIA case officer, but he's also untested. So, hard to say how well he's going to do in November. I do think, talking to Republicans, they would definitely put this on if they're going to flip any seats this cycle, it's up there on that list of top 10, maybe top 5, but it's still going to be very tough. And of course they have a better target in Captor.
Captor would be a top 5 for sure, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You really have
dynamic of the district being what it is, right?
Yes. So setting aside Florida, I would say the top targets for Republicans this cycle are Don Davis in North Carolina. You have
another redistricting situation.
Yes, another redistricting situation. Maine 2 left open by Jared Golden. And then you have Captor after that. And then you have Vicente Gonzalez, Texas 34.
Yep.
And then probably Marie Gluesenkamp Perez in Washington 3. That's also one that we have rated as a toss-up, but I do think she's going to have the edge this cycle. So we'll see if we keep it there.
Just because of national environment?
Just because of national environment. And she's faced Joe Kent,
right,
who also has quite a bit of baggage for the past 2 cycles. So she's had, a
it's
better...
the first time she won't face Joe Kent.
That's right. Joe Kent not running this time, right? Yeah.
Hey,
let's go back to Ohio. Tell us about Max Miller, who's been in his own high-profile, shall we say, divorce issues.
Oh, my God.
And I believe he was married to Bernie Moreno's daughter.
He's married to Bernie Moreno's daughter, yes.
Yeah.
The senator.
So there's a little bit of that has its own set of awkwardness to it. But it's Democrats talk about it. Is it a serious target?
It's one that we're monitoring closely, and that one actually is going to the primary results will matter there because you've had Ed Fitzgerald.
So who are you watching tonight? Yeah.
Is that Brian? Which one is it?
That is 7.
He's 7.
Okay. Let me pull it up.
So the primary on the Democratic side is pretty crowded. Ryan Poindexter, who is an iron worker, is the pick of national Democrats. He's gotten a mix of support from, I would say, the more progressive and centrist of the party. Bernie endorsed him, did a rally with him. He also got a boost from one of the Anthropic funded super
Did Ed Fitzgerald, was he did he run for governor?
Yes, he was a gubernatorial state senator, right?
He got his handed to him, right? Yeah.
He did. No one wants him to be the nominee.
Right.
Yeah. But he is starting out with the certain level of name ID. And so I think if Fitzgerald wins the nomination, I doubt this one gets competitive.
Interesting.
If it's Poindexter, I think Democrats have a much better chance. But
At
again,
the moment, Poindexter's up by 700 votes, but 40% in. Hey, Skelly. Skelly, if you
Hey
want to
there,
take
I'm back. Hey, are
over-
you talking about Max
Hey.
Miller's seat?
Yes.
Yes, we were
We
talking about
are.
the Max
Yes.
Miller seat.
Why don't
yeah.
you, hey Lauren, why don't you switch back to Jeffries because he can get the better views on this than I can at the moment. So I'm going to take mine off of screen sharing. And Aaron, I know you have a heart out, so why don't we respect that and let you go? Aaron Covey of the Cook Political Report with Amy Walter.
Thank you for
You
having
got to
me
get the
on.
Amy part in there. That's
Got
like the
it, yeah.
official. That's the official name now. If I don't do that, Catherine and Amy get mad at me. Don't want that.
They're going to pull their endorsement.
Yeah, I don't want that.
That's right.
I need their
That's right.
support when I run for
Yeah.
president.
Exactly.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Bye, Aaron. Thank
So Skelly, my issue was I could not get the broadcast view up on it. So it's probably just my computer, but Lauren, switch to Jeffrey's screen there. So Jeffrey, while you were gone, 21 called for Tracy
Yes.
Powell. So that's now 2 pickups for Trump. Do you want to just go through when you
Yeah,
get
let's go
control
through 'em.
of the screen?
Absolutely.
And let's just go through where each of these are and where we think they're going to be. Chuck did a quick rundown.
Yeah, I
while
think
we
we
were
have
on
3
with Aaron,
incumbents
but-
that are ahead.
Yes,
And
so-
all the
so-
other incumbents are trailing. Yeah.
So, and I want to make sure I get this right. What did we decide it was? Dernol?
Somebody on my YouTube feed said Dernal.
Dernol.
Dernal.
I wanted to make sure I
Yes.
was getting it right too, because I saw that comment in the
Yep.
StreamYard.
Yes,
setup.
yes.
Well, Dan Dernal is in a lot of trouble in the 1st district up in the northwestern part of the state.
Skelly,
in
can you
Lake
make this
County.
bigger?
Yeah.
It may be my screen that Lauren still has.
Oh,
but
I think Lauren is still on your screen, not
Lauren,
mine.
can you switch?
Oh no,
it
no,
to
it was
Skelly?
me.
There
That
we
was my
go.
fault. No, it was
Okay,
my
cool.
fault. Apologies,
Okay.
Lauren. It was my fault.
Damn it, Skelly.
I shared the wrong
Lauren
thing.
is the mastermind behind the scenes.
No.
He's the
Lauren's
Wizard
good.
of
It was
Oz.
not his. It was not his fault. So yes,
Yeah.
apologies. Sharing the wrong. I had it up in the back.
This is not even close here, guys. This one.
No. This would be by far the ugliest of the results. for the
Golly.
incumbents.
Half the vote.
So that's one of the 7 where there was an endorsement, and the Trump endorsed candidate, to be clear for viewers, is well ahead here, Trevor DeVries, and I believe Pete Seat. And now I can't remember if it was him or Kayla Dwyer telling us that DeVries was originally planning to run for the state house, but then when this sort of situation arose with the redistricting, saw an opportunity and decided to run for state senate instead, and now it may pan out for him. This is another seat more in the South Bend area. Linda Rogers is the incumbent, and she's just trailing behind the Trump endorsed candidate. We got about 70% of the vote in from here. So that lead could hold. You'd rather be Brian Schmutzler, who's a physician, who's challenging Rogers in that race. So that's 2 incumbents trailing in the remaining 5 races.
I love this. It looks like the total vote is so tiny, right?
Yes.
You're sitting here, you're going, oh, look, it's a 53-40, 54-46. That's a blowout.
300 vote margin.
Right. There's a 300 vote margin. Right. We're better off speaking in raw vote margins, I think, actually, than we are percentages.
Percentages can be, when it's that small,
It could be misleading.
It's misleading. It's like 80-20. Oh, now it's tied,
Right.
So those are the 2 incumbents that were trailing, and then we have 2 incumbents who we've projected have been defeated. And now we're going to get to the 3 incumbents who are still in the lead. So we have Spencer Deary, who may have had the most money spent against him of any of the incumbents.
$2+ million bucks
Yeah.
in that race alone. In a
Spencer
state
Deary-
Senate district.
Yeah, so he's the incumbent. He's running against Paula Copenhaver, and she is currently trailing. We got about half the expected.
There might
vote
be
in there.
12,000 total votes in this primary. So, hey,
Hey,
That's a big one, Chuck. Big
That's
turnout.
a big one. Big turnout. Yeah.
And so Deary's looking like, maybe he's going to hold on. We'll see. A lot, still plenty of vote left out there. Obviously, we're not projecting anything. Greg Good is the next one up, and he seems to be in somewhat better shape. Again, only 40% or so of the vote reporting.
All right.
But it's a 3-way race,
Well, I was just
Three-way
going to
race.
say, look, this is the mistake the rest of the incumbents made. Go
Gotta
find
get-
go find the dummy third party candidate
So
or third
true.
candidate. in
Find
this
someone
race.
with the same last name.
We've got
Right,
Chuck
do
Todd,
something
and then
here.
we've got Jim Todd in this race.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, just make it work.
Chuck, I was waiting for you to make a Wilson Phillips reference here, and you never did.
Ooh, I
the
didn't.
Brian
Well,
Wilson kids.
Yeah.
Of our 90s.
These are the
of
other.
the 90s.
These are the other
These are
Wilson.
Other Wilsons.
Brian Wilson was prolific, so you never know. I mean,
Brenda and Alexandra. You didn't hear as much about them.
So we got some more votes in, and actually the number is now 5 incumbents are trailing. So Greg Walker was in the lead, but we now have a big chunk of the vote that came
Davis,
in.
she's taken up,
and so she's now taking the lead. Yeah, she has a sizable lead. So about 80% of the vote reporting, she's in a pretty good position here. So at this point, we're looking at between the projections and where the vote totals are, 5 of the 7 Trump endorsed candidates leading or having been projected to win. And I'll add in one more for good measure. There was the 8th state senator who was not did not have a Trump endorsed candidate. However, he is barely ahead. The state senator who was running, James Starkey, was not endorsed by President Trump, but Rick Niemeyer is barely ahead.
14
now,
votes, Chuck.
Not a lot of vote in. Still, only about not even quite 20% of the expected vote in from this state seat that's up in the northwestern part of the state. Remember, the polls closed an hour later in that part of the state, up around Chicago in the northwest corner. So we just don't have as much of the vote in from there. But yes, if you're thinking adding him to the list, you do have a situation where Trump.
Look, I'm not.
He's 8 no's.
I was just gonna say he's already look.
He's already passed the majority marker from the way things are looking. At least.
He's in a situation now where, he's in a bad situation politically. Everything's a mess. So either, it's one of those things where had this gone badly, it would have been really bad. Yeah. It going well, it's sort of like, well, you were supposed to win these things, right? Like he's in one of these situations where there's no, the benefit is he doesn't take a loss, right? Like that's the benefit here, but it's not as if he's getting redistricting this year in Indiana.
The only thing I will say, Chuck, is,
but I buy the idea. Yes, I buy the idea.
There is the kind of
might get it in 2028
the looming threat.
Well, no, but it gets South Carolina to do it now, and yes,
and I
the
do
other
think
states. I buy that.
The reality we know about Donald Trump, right, is incredibly unpopular among Democrats. 75% of independents don't like him either, but still among the, particularly not just the Republican Party writ large, but the MAGA base, which is, I think, the bulk of the party, he remains a powerful figure. And this affirms that. It doesn't change anything. He's not going to go from 35% approval to 42% approval because he won 6 state Senate races in Indiana, but within the party, it does still, he is still the Darth Vader factor who does the like this, and you're like,
but it goes the other way. Look, you and I both know this. There's a bunch of Republicans that are done with him, that would love the voters to be able to
absolutely
send a message so they could run, not walk away from him. And what this does for Trump is that it keeps people from feeling like they can now comfortably get distance from him. It
keeps them in line.
And they won't. And I think that's what was at risk tonight for Trump. Look, by the way, if Massey wins, all of this that he gets tonight is meaningless. A Massey victory will have the same effect as not winning these Senate primaries would.
I was just going to note that, look, President Trump's approval rating has dipped somewhat among Republicans. This is the average from Decision Desk HQ among Republicans, but it's still about 80%.
Right? Yeah,
he's at about 80% now. So,
and Skelly, overall, I think I looked at this morning. You guys now have him under 40 in your polling average, like just under 40 in the overall.
He is now. Yeah, I just brought up the full number.
Yeah,
he is right at about 40,
57%.
Right. Yeah, 57% disapprove. Overall. So yes, but in terms of his position with the Republican Party and among Republicans, I mean, Kyle Kondik, I think, said it earlier, there isn't really a modern comparison to Trump's sort of sway within the GOP. And I think that's borne out by, numbers among Republicans, whether you're talking about the financial, if you're a Trump endorsed candidate and the support you were getting in these races, or if you're looking in polling and seeing your average Republican is 4 out of 5 or say that they approve of him.
I just want to go through a couple notes we're getting from DDHQ guru Scott Tranter, the man who inspired me to wear New Balance sneakers with suits. He says a couple things. One, Indiana, which Jeffrey has noted is, renowned for being relatively slow counting, is actually counting relatively quickly. So could be a little bit shorter in terms of knowing how well Trump did there. He also said in Ohio, more votes to come in, but all of the congressional incumbents appear to be safe for nomination where we have votes. So where there's vote in. So no out of the blue. I don't think we would expect that, but no out of the blue kind of upset coming there. I just wanted to kind of update people with that.
No, that's
sort of the information we have behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think it's worth noting. Yeah. Just thinking about like the most endangered incumbent in Ohio is not in her primary. It's Marcy Kaptur, but who will face her? Yeah. And here in the early part of the night here, what we're seeing is Derek Marin, who faced her and Kaptur very narrowly defeated in 2024, but obviously the district became a little redder in redistricting. Marin currently leads, but about 15% reporting, so remains to be seen.
And I will note that if you recognize that third name there, Madison Sheehan,
yes,
number two or number three figure at Immigrations and Custom Enforcement.
She was deputy director at ICE.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So that is a name that people nationally may know, but does not look great for her.
Yeah. And she made a big,
but does not look great for her.
Yeah. She made a big, Sheehan actually came in and fundraised pretty well. But she got into the race very late, in mid-January, actually. Right. Not too long before the candidate filing deadline. And if you're thinking about fundraising terms, the first quarter of 2026 had already started. But she did fundraise pretty well. But it is interesting because there was some concern that because ICE has become such a controversial aspect of the Trump administration, that if she were to win the Republican nomination, that actually might help Kaptur a little bit in Marcy Kaptur, the Democratic incumbent, in the general election context. Remains to be seen. Obviously, it's still early.
Well, we were talking about Kaptur. I mean, we
talked about Kaptur with Aaron.
Aaron was talking about how that it got 4 points better for Republicans. From 24 to this, but of course, the political environment has gotten about 4 points better for Democrats, right?
Exactly so it's similar.
It probably means that in theory, Kaptur might essentially be playing in the same playing field she was playing in 24.
Right. And that's the thing about the midterm environment. It might really, it's interesting because we talk
about
probably
her last, it's probably her last ability
that's
to win.
The thing, right?
She needs the wind blowing like that at her. In a presidential election year, it could be really tough.
It could be really tough. Yeah.
Hey, Jeffrey, you mentioned this before, but I'm getting it in the YouTube chat a fair amount, and I just want to make sure we address it. So you said in Indiana, 700,000-ish on the Democratic side, 700,000-ish on the Republican side for turnout.
No, I think that was total.
Okay.
Across both parties.
So 700,000 total.
There's no statewide race in Indiana, so that's worth noting.
So do we have a barometer? Because people are like, well, is that a lot or a little? I mean, we broadly kind of reference this, that a lot of these places you're seeing 12,000 votes, but we don't have a good apples to apples comparison, right?
Well, and Pete Seat explained it, right?
Yep.
That Indiana has weird rules where if there's no competitive race locally,
you don't vote.
You don't vote.
It's not open to vote.
An election. Yeah. Yep. So it's an interesting. So it means the diehards are the ones that showed up. So this is as Republican of a Republican primary as you're going to get. No.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least somewhere in that vicinity. I mean, this sort of races this small with no statewide race,
right?
Drawing
it's
attention,
totally driven by local.
And because at the end of the day, statewide races, especially a competitive statewide race, are the thing that drive turnout the most. So not having one of those on the ballot, for instance, if this were happening, I mean, it's a different universe, but if Indiana had gubernatorial elections in midterms instead of presidential years, they're one of the states that has them in presidential years. They had a really competitive and crowded primary for governor in 2024. And of course, turnout was quite high. They also had a presidential primary, but the point is that there was a lot of attention being paid to this big statewide race, and you don't have that.
There's no turnout driver where the casual voter is like, I'm going to vote statewide.
Not a lot of casual voters.
I'm going to.
And I'll be honest, if you're these state Senate incumbents, you're glad. Because I actually think if you got just more casual Republican primary voters,
presumably they would be people influenced by
more
the spending on the Trump side, right?
And they're going to be more national voters. Like the super small this is what made it weirdly riskier in some ways for Trump.
Yeah, because with small numbers of votes, the margin, your ability to control it is not as high. So, but it does look, just for people who are tuning in, it does look, we think, at least right now, a good night for Donald Trump. Of the 7 endorsed candidates he endorsed against sitting Republican state senators in Indiana. 2 have already beaten sitting state senators, the 19th district and the 21st district. And there's
a third has just been called.
Okay. Skelly, you want to do that?
Skelly, you want to do the honors?
Yeah, sure.
Trump's got his he's now 3-0 in called races.
Where was this
It's the 41st, Michelle Davis.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, that makes sense because that one we were getting a lot of vote in. Yep, there we go. Yeah, so yes, it looks like yes, Michelle Davis has defeated Greg Walker in the 41st State Senate District of Indiana, which is sits sort of south of or partly in the Indianapolis metro area. And so, that's 3 for 3 of the 3 that we've projected. You still have a couple of the incumbents that are ahead, but it's looking like it could be 5 for 7.
Looks like he's going to go 5 and 2 at worst case scenario. And
5 and 2.
The one that he didn't get involved in, he
might still get that. Yes,
he may get that anyway. Does he get it in his column? He'll claim it.
Of course he will. The one that looks the best for an incumbent state senator is the Wilson, right? I mean, so in some ways it's like that's not even like a perfect Trump versus the establishment.
Right.
You got 2 candidates named the same thing. One who's
here's what I'll say is I'll tell you the guy I'd run my campaigns. Get me that Greg Good guy. He's smart enough to go figure out another way to win. Like, hey, I can't do it this way. Go find a
third Wilson.
Get it. Go find a Wilson. Find a volleyball or something and put some hair on it and run it. Yeah.
Terrific. Good.
Thank you very much.
Good job by you.
Thank you.
Yep. And can we just, Jeffrey, other than Good, where is the other Indiana Republican state senator who is ahead currently? Because I know the others are behind, but because the Good one is a little weird because of that 3-way race.
Although Good is over 50. I'm sorry. I mean, if you're going to be over 50, as much as we're having fun with the third candidate with the same last name.
Yeah, even if you combine the votes of the 2 Wilsons, it's still not enough. The other one is the guy Spencer is
Deary.
Ahead, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Spencer Deary. Yeah.
But the race has gotten closer, and that speaks to the fact that we've more of the votes in.
399 vote margin right now.
Yeah, so Deary, I believe Deary is from Tippecanoe County, which is this is Lafayette.
Tippecanoe and Tyler too.
Purdue.
There it is.
This is Purdue territory. And appropriately colored yellow. Actually, I don't know if that was not intentional.
Is that just by chance?
But it works. But Paula Copenhaver.
We should be drinking Boilermakers as a
there we go.
Salute.
That we start that at 9, right? Paula Copenhaver has narrowed margin here. Got about 2/3 of the vote in. So Greg Good might be the only incumbent who comes out of this of those 7. We'll see.
The other question that I'm seeing, and I just want to address, right? So for people unfamiliar, when this vote about the new map in Indiana happened, it failed in the Indiana State Senate 31-19. 21
map.
21 Republicans voted against the Trump map, 10 voted for it. So some people are saying, does this now mean they're going to have enough to do it come 2027? Are they going to have enough to do it? And math wise, I'm not entirely sure that they will. I mean, obviously if 10 people lost, they would, but that's not
but Kayla was telling us they only needed a couple. I mean, they don't have enough to get rid of the leadership, but they do have enough to get the map,
to maybe get the map, right? So right, thank you, Jeffrey, for pulling this up. So so you have 21. Go ahead.
So the vote was 31-19 no. 10 of those no votes were the 10 Democrats in the state Senate. So in theory, you could have a situation where the no camp goes from 21 to 16. And actually that number might even have gotten smaller, because it's worth noting that 2 of the no votes didn't seek re-election who were up this time.
Yep.
So in that sense, if they were replaced by potential yes votes, perhaps that number is falling to like 14.
We're assuming all these incumbents are going to win their generals. Should we?
Mostly we should, because most of these seats are pretty safe.
Which are the most competitive of these?
The one in Northwest, the one in Gary is competitive.
Everything is always swinging Northwest Indiana. That's where the one swing out seat.
The name that we kept struggling with,
Durnall. Ignore the C.
if he loses, if Turnout loses the primary, perhaps that opens up and gives Democrats a better shot at winning the first. It's a district that went for President Trump by about 7 points. So in a bluer year, it could be closer to an even kind of split seat. So maybe that is a pickup opportunity for Democrats. One of the retiring state senators, Kyle Walker, not to be confused with Greg Walker, who we've projected as lost. There were two Walkers. Kyle Walker didn't run again, and he was one of the no votes. And that's actually a seat that Kamala Harris narrowly carried in 2024. So that might be a pickup for opportunity for Democrats. So maybe all told, you're still talking about, though, the yes caucus within the Republican caucus being larger than the no caucus.
Yeah,
because definitely the outcome from, and that could then in part influence who's the leader in leadership. What does leadership do to make those people happy? Do they adjust? Do they change their tune after this election?
And remember, Trump's ultimate goal here stated goal was to get rid of the state Senate majority leader, who is not on the ballot this time, but would be on the ballot in 2028. So the hope among the Trump folks was they could win enough that they could get rid of him as leader and then try to beat him in 2028. So, it's sort of a little bit of a bank shot because he's not every state senator is up every 2 years.
Yeah. So but to your point, he may get that outcome, which, would be a win for him.
Yep.
At this
point, this is not at a minimum, Trump does not have a loss tonight, right? Meaning, like,
no, absolutely.
If all of them could go against him and he hasn't, we could debate how wasted this money is if you compare it to money he didn't spend in Virginia, and there's going to be those arguments and stuff. But he's not. At a minimum, he's a minor winner tonight, and he very well may have a near clean sweep.
I mean, I hate this.
Or as they say in the NBA, when you win 4-1, a gentleman's sweep.
Gentleman's sweep. Let him win that one.
Yeah.
I do think, Chuck, for a guy, it's the hungry man will grasp at any food source. Like, look,
he needed a win.
There's very little good news out there. Like, Iran is at an absolute stalemate. Gas prices are, I looked today. I think it's now, Chuck and I talked on Monday. It was like $4.44. Now it's like $4.50 average a gallon. His approval rating, as Jeffrey showed, high 30s. There's plenty of good quality polling that has him in the mid 30s. There's not a lot of good news, so
this has been his. This is his. I think we're at his all-time low as president.
Yes. And I would guess that if you do have him win, although January 6th he was at 29 in that Pew poll, so he's never been that low. But I would guess you will see Donald Trump, because this is who he is on Truth Social, take a massive victory lap, and kind of flex his muscles over they came at us and they, and this is my party and MAGA is me, because that's what he does, right? And again, it doesn't change a whole hell of a lot. His poll numbers are not going to this is among Republican. Like, if you vote in this race, it's the Republicans of the Republicans, but still.
And that has been the question, right? Which is, if there had been any sign of weakness inside the Republican side of things. We see the weakness in independents and in generals. That's clear. But if you started to see cracks there, I think it would have been like a flood. It's sort of like, oh, wow.
I think there are a lot of people
waiting. Can do this now?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
And to stave that off, look, the whole point is the duck in the Oval Office lame? And you know what? You can't say he's lame yet.
That's not yet. Nope.
He's not lame yet.
And speaking of, one of his endorsed candidates, the incumbent Jim Baird in the 4th Congressional District, looks like we've projected, Decision Desk HQ has projected that he will win renomination. There was some thought, since he hadn't raised very much money and has been talked about as a potential retirement, and actually was maybe even positioning for his son, who is in the state legislature, to run in his stead. But he ended up running for re-election, and Craig Haggard, a state legislator, was challenging him, but Baird has survived. This and I think Victoria Spartz are the two incumbent Republicans, or incumbents period, who are under 60%.
She always underperforms.
I was just going to say she underperforms all the time.
She's the Lauren Boebert of Indiana. So yes, she always underperforms that district.
Yeah, she's an interesting character to be sure. And
where is she, Jeffrey? Can you pull that up?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. Let me.
So that then means Stutzman
On any
is
given day,
over
she's
60.
she's going to announce her retirement, and then she runs for re-election,
retires
and
then
she
unretires
does
all the time.
It really is. It's like
She is literally unretired and retired multiple times. For people who are not
thank
familiar
you for
with
saying
her.
that.
Yes,
Thank you, because that's what it feels.
Yeah, so
I'm like, and she's of
all
Ukrainian
told,
descent.
She's
I believe
about 60%. Yeah,
she's first generation Ukrainian.
she is.
Yeah, she moved here as a kid, I believe, or a teenager, I forget. But yes, she's from Ukraine.
But you're right. When you're under 60 in a primary,
against not a notable primary challenger either. This
Against
was
a
not
guy
one
who
that
had his
anyone thought he
official
was
picture
gonna-
taken wearing a hat.
Right.
There's
You're
no
not
one's expecting this guy to beat
That's
her.
all you need to know
that's
about
the
Scott
official
King.
photo. Right. Yeah. That's the file photo. Nice.
If your official photo that we can find of you has you in a hat, the chances of you winning, unless you're in the West and it's a cowboy hat, are not
Or
high.
unless you're Donald Trump, who loves to wear hats.
He breaks every rule, Chuck. Hey, did Marlon Stutzman, Jeffrey, he occasionally has problems within the party. He's over, I assume, since you said it's only the two under 60, he's fine.
Yeah, sorry. Let me bring that up.
Yeah.
I had not closely followed that one because earlier I did look. Yeah, he's at 66 right now.
I mean, he just occasionally doesn't.
Yeah,
he's another one in that delegation.
Yeah. So Stutzman's at about 66%. I will note that Jim Baird race with Jim Baird winning against the state legislator who he defeated. That individual did have the state attorney general's endorsement. Craig Haggard, the state legislator who lost to Baird, did have some backing from various Republicans in the state. So that's another reason why it was like, maybe there is something here. But in the end, it looks like Indiana's congressional delegation will be winning renomination across the board. Because actually the other race that I should mention, and one that I was keeping an eye on, but wasn't exactly sure how much opposition he was going to end up getting, is on the Democratic side. And this was actually one of the districts that would have been carved up had we gotten a new congressional map in Indiana. So that's Marion.
That's Indianapolis proper, right?
Yeah. So there's not a lot going on in this map because it's just part of one county.
Are they doing the hub and spoke? Is that the idea that they're just going to
That's what it would have been.
Indianapolis?
It would have split Marion County, I think, into 4 districts. So Marion County is where Indianapolis is. Most of it is Indianapolis.
No, it's what Utah did with Salt Lake City
of course. I mean, this
they
is
were
classic.
told not
You're
to.
cracking your opposition.
It's what they did in Northern Virginia.
Districts,
right?
What Virginia is doing in reverse,
Virginia.
spreading out and grabbing little parts of rural Virginia to do that. But Andre Carson did. He's never won less than 85% since he first won this seat back in 2008. So he did have sort of more.
And his
notable
mother held
opposition.
this seat prior to
his
him.
Grandmother, yes, his grandmother,
Julia Carson. Yeah,
Julia
I remember
Carson.
her.
When she passed away, he won the special in 2008 to replace her. But he's never had much trouble. But there were he was getting some pushback this cycle, and I guess that's reflected in him at 63%, which is not terrible, but not great either for an incumbent in a primary.
Hey, before we bring Nathaniel Rakich, who we're going to bring in from VoteBeat, who will be here in a minute, I just want to again go through. So there are 5 Indiana state Senate races remaining. I'm just going, this is via Scott Tranter, in the Decision Desk HQ Hive Mind. Hey, before we do that, do you want to do Senate District 38 good? Do you see that one, Lauren?
Yeah, let's pull that up.
Let's do
it looks
that
like we're close.
Because I think we've got
I think we
there.
just had a projection.
We're about to win it. Yeah, or call it. Yeah.
So yes, Decision Desk HQ is ready to project Greg Good as the incumbent there, who was opposed by President Trump.
So three
win renomination in a 3-way race.
3-1.
Yes. So yes. So this is a hold. Good for what it's worth. I think we were talking earlier. He's very close to Todd Young, the U.S. senator, and
the state director.
He is his state director of U.S. senator. Yeah,
not just very close, like an employee.
So in the sense of this is somebody who obviously has probably some pretty deep connections into the state Republican Party,
and I would assume Todd Young helped him. behind the scenes too.
Yeah,
so that's your state director lose.
So that's just, if you're sort of thinking about why did this candidate survive? He is above 50%, as Chuck, you were pointing out earlier. given that it's a three-way race. If he was at like 45% and was barely ahead, we'd be talking about maybe the three-way race saved him. But right now, at least, it looks like he's going to finish north of 50.
All right. So before we bring Nathaniel on, let me just do a quick update from the hive mind of DDHQ. So there are now 4 races left uncalled in Indiana, Indiana State Senate races. Let's go through them. Indiana 11, too close to call. Waiting on Elkhart County to report. Okay. Indiana 23, waiting on Fountain and Montgomery. That is close. Indiana 1, there's only 1 drop from Lake County. You need a second drop that shows election day before projecting.
This is the one where the incumbent
70-20
is way behind.
We're just waiting for election
one
day.
drop
vote.
away. If the election day drop is he's still. I mean, even if it's close, it's basically bad news.
Right. And then Indiana 6, way behind there. Indiana 6 is the other one other than good, where the incumbent is ahead, but there is 60% of the vote outstanding, and it's only a 5-point margin. Obviously, you're going to need more of the vote than that. So again, one race for the challengers, or one race for the incumbents, 3 races for the Trump challengers, 3 races uncalled at this point.
Yeah, and just for
plus the 8th.
Yeah, so at this point, it sort of seems like the big question is if sort of these trends continue, does Trump end up at potentially 5 or 6 of the 7 that he endorsed against, and we'll see.
All right,
and how many did he need? He needed
4 of 7.
He needed 4.
Well, no. But how many votes did he need to actually? And I guess that's the question.
They would need. Well, it was the 30 because it was 31-19,
right?
And so
two are retired. 2 no's are retiring.
Yeah, you would. I mean, it's a 40 seat. You need 21 votes, and so they basically.
He's going to get 4 tonight, so he's going to be at 23.
Yeah.
He's going to be 3 short,
at a minimum.
And he had 19
between the retirements and changeover and others. He might have a majority there.
21 Republicans voted against this map.
Close.
I promise you. Those that survived, my guess is
if you're on the ballot in 2028, Chuck, if you're an Indiana State Senator and you're on the ballot in 2028 and you see 4 or 5 of your colleagues went down in that's a strong incentive to be like, hey, the next time this comes around, I'm gonna be for it. Let's bring
he likely made it. He likely won enough to win the narrative.
Whether it's the raw 100%. Numbers or where it's leading to.
Where it's headed to. Yep.
Let's bring in Nathaniel Rakich from VoteBeat, who I believe is here. There he is.
Hey, guys.
Oh, go Reds.
Speaking of wearing a hat, you just were making fun of a candidate photo that had a hat.
We were just making fun of a crazy candidate who had a hat.
Wow,
yeah.
So now all of a sudden we've
got wear your Reds gear.
No.
Reds are doing well this year.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I always try to have some themed headgear.
Well, it is it's an Ohio primary night, and it's a good night for Team Red in Indiana if you count MAGA as Team Red.
Good point.
Nathaniel, are you surprised at all? Like we were just talking about this, and state Senate races are so hard to project. It's not like we have like a bunch of polling or but like it looks like we've got 1 incumbent state senator who won. We've got 3 who've lost. We've got 2 at a minimum who are behind but kind of waiting. Does that surprise you or not surprise? Is that what you expected, or did you not have expectations because it's hard to know what to expect in this kind of thing?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't have expectations. I think I'm not surprised insofar as we know that the number 1 asset for any Republican candidate for, nigh 8 years now has been the Trump endorsement. In a primary, it's been practically a golden ticket. When 538 existed, Jeffrey and I would do these analyses that found that something like 95% of his candidates would win. And obviously some of that is Trump padding his record, right? He loves to endorse incumbents who aren't seriously challenged. And
so he
like
can,
that.
right.
But
he wants to be able to say.
He went on his kind of revenge tour for impeachment, most of those guys ended up losing. Not all of them. Some of them were able to hold out.
The only ones that survived were ones that didn't have partisan primaries.
Right.
They had the all-party primaries.
So
that's right.
I think that was those were some of the hardest swings that he took, and he succeeded at most of them. And I think state senators, yeah, I mean, I am not familiar with the intricacies of, these specific state Senate districts and how strong of a brand that these senators had. But, there was a world in which they could have used kind of local issues, local connections to survive. But, the nationalization of politics comes from it for us all, right? Ask John Tester and Claire McCaskill and all those, and Joe Donnelly,
and maybe
Indiana,
we may add Susan Collins to that list, right? It's the same
right,
thing.
exactly.
Like eventually it catches up to you,
right? So in that sense, I think I am not surprised. I think the part that interests me is that these guys didn't really run on redistricting. Like it's hard to make the Trump.
No, they ran on other issues. The actual campaign was litigated on other issues.
That's right. Pete Seat made this point. They didn't talk about redistricting, even though that was the impetus for their candidacies.
It's such a niche issue, right? Like it's such a process thing. And I don't think that's really a great argument for telling people why they need to kick out a voter. But they're the kind of the vague, like, I'm Trumpier than this guy. Like that seems to have worked. And I do think that just comes down to like, there's one issue in American politics right now, and that is Donald Trump.
Does it change, Nathaniel, does it change your sense of 2 weeks from now is Tom Massey against Ed Gulrine? Does this night, I know Indiana is not Kentucky, although, it's not California versus Indiana, but like, I guess I had assumed, maybe wrongly, that maybe Massey would sneak out. And now, I will just say for myself, I'm like, well, maybe like, don't write Donald Trump's political obituary among the Republican Party too soon. What do you make of that?
That's a good question. I hadn't thought about it in those terms. I was the same as you. I was assuming that Massey was going to be okay because he does have a very unique brand, and he has been kind of, the happy libertarian warrior for a while, and it seems to work for him in that district. But I do think that he's certainly got to take it seriously. And I guess you're right. I would now. This does change my priors a bit.
It's just interesting because it's like the dichotomy.
Well, let's flip the question. Let me flip the
ahead,
question
Chuck.
to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does Massey winning on 2 weeks erase Trump's success tonight?
No, definitely doesn't erase it. I think this is a pretty impressive kind of flexing of his power. I do think it would be particularly impressive for Massey, right? It would show that there is something special about him and his particular brand that works for him. And I think that there's a reason that, he has been a thorn in general Republican, the establishment, and also Trump's side for a while. And, they haven't kind of seriously gone after him until this year. And I think that there's a reason for that because I don't think it's just as simple as, Trump goes after anybody he goes after, or everybody that Trump goes after loses, right? He picks his spots very well. And, kind of like what we were talking about before. Yeah. No, I think that this is a big win for Trump, or it's shaping up to be a big win for Trump regardless.
I think he's already won enough tonight to declare victory, and he's likely to get more. The way it looks, the way it's trending.
Right. Nathaniel, Chuck and I talk about this. I want to just go a little bit bigger because we're sort of debating the numbers on Indiana. Does Trump now, or will he relatively soon have enough that they can go in 2027 and do what they wanted to do in December of 2025 and redraw the map? If I set the over under at 10 states, redrawing, well, let's call it 10 and a half so we don't have a push. 10 and a half states reopening their map between January 2027 and let's call it
August 2028.
April 2028. That's fine. I didn't want it to go too late.
No, you want to do but assume legislative sessions through the first part of 28.
If it's 10 and a half, are you taking the over or the under? And I'm not asking you to go through all 50 states and be like, well, if this happens.
Now I have to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think you set it slightly too high.
I
have a feeling, Nathaniel, if we set it at 8.5, that would be a more proper line. Right?
A lot of the states, obviously there are all those states that mostly controlled by Democrats that, have kind of a multi-step process like Colorado that, they couldn't have redistricted this year. But I think that a lot of the states that would do it this year. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of Calais kind of stragglers. So, Georgia is interesting because that's going to hinge on, they might decide to do it in a special, like a lame duck session after the election.
It's what Kemp kind of hinted at. Yeah.
Right. And so, I don't know if that counts toward, because that would technically be before January 2027.
Right. Yeah,
but
that's a good
in the
point.
spirit of things, it would be after 2028. But if Republicans win that governor's race, then, they would have free reign to redraw in 2020 or
But your expectation broadly is we're going to see
going to be a lot of states
of this.
Yeah.
Right? But this
Right.
is not, it's not 2025 and 2026 are not going to be, oh man, that was crazy. You would expect at least as much, if not more, going forward.
Right. Yes. I mean, I think 2028 for sure. The issue is eventually you're going to hit a ceiling, right? Like there are states that can't redistrict anymore, right? States that,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously like, Republicans' favorite example, Massachusetts, already maxed out. That's because there just aren't enough Republicans in Massachusetts in order to elect a reliable Republican House member. But
there's room in Illinois. When you look at the Democrats, there's room in Illinois. There's room in New York,
Colorado.
obviously.
New York,
Those are
for
big
sure.
ones. I'm not.
What was the other one you said, Nathaniel?
What's left in Colorado? I guess you create a.
You can draw an 8-0 map in Colorado pretty easily if they get rid of.
You can even get you can do the Western Slope,
like the Western Slope, the old Scott McInnis district.
Yep.
You can really turn the Western.
What do you
Slope
do? Do
blue
you put
too?
part of Denver in that Western Slope district? Is that what you would do?
Yeah.
You're literally going to climb you're going to have to climb the Rockies in order to do the entire district.
Oh
Are you
yeah.
kidding me?
I mean, obviously any kind of, whatever shame.
There are no rules. Right.
Yes, shame is dead.
The window.
Yeah.
But no, you can do it in Colorado, Maryland.
So Colorado, New York, Illinois, Maryland.
And look, if there's a Republican governor in Kansas, we may see Kansas. Right?
Oh, yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah, well, Sharice Davids, that district could go away. I mean, they tried to do it and they decided not to do it.
I just think it's hard in Kansas. I guess they could. I mean, that's a big suburban population to figure out how to crack up.
Yeah, but I think they could do it. Obviously, whatever southern states don't get to it this year, and I think
would Texas reopen?
That's a good question. They're pretty. I mean, probably. Like they might as well try.
Right? Why not?
Especially if they don't get Cuellar this cycle, they'll probably try again.
I think Texas went about this. Right. I think they went about this the wrong way. I think they had their wrong. I think they overassumed the Latino vote in ways they shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm.
I think they may go back because they need to sort of do the map over.
I think
they
messed up the map. It actually is a bit of an aside, but since we're talking about Ohio, the kind of so-called redistricting reform that Ohio passed, so folks, if you're listening to
constitutional amendment, right?
You probably know about it. Right. So this was back before the 2020 census. They passed an amendment that basically was designed to create fairer maps, but it actually was a very clever way of allowing Republicans to gerrymander twice, because basically it said any map needs to pass with bipartisan support or else it'll only be good for 2 election cycles, right? It was 2022 and 2024. So Ohio had to redistrict this year. They were legally obligated to. They shouldn't be put in the same bucket as, the Texases and the Missouris and the North Carolinas and the Californias. But it's very if you want to be the most ruthless gerrymanderer you can, you want to be redistricting more often because, it lets you adapt to these changes. We didn't know that Latino support was going to drift so far to the right back when people were drawing the maps in 2021. And you're right. In Texas, if this map doesn't perform for them, if there's a reversion to old Latino support levels for Democrats, they can go in and change it again. So you're right.
What about, let me give you 2 other states that are very closely contested in the legislature, but technically have trifectas at the moment, Michigan and Pennsylvania. Now, Michigan has a constitutional amendment, right?
Right.
I know constitutional amendments are just suggestions these days.
Well, so Michigan has an independent redistricting commission. That one I think is going to be difficult. I haven't heard of any attempts to repeal that. And I think probably the reason for that is that Democrats don't feel secure enough that they would have control. I mean, they currently don't. They have.
I was at an event, moderating an event with the likely Democratic nominee, who's Secretary of State. Yeah. And she was pretty emphatic that it was untouchable.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I haven't heard any buzz about Michigan, and that's one of the states that we cover at VoteBeat. Same with Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has the issue of the state Supreme Court, which has basically said that the state constitution says that you can't partisan gerrymander. And that's basically the one solid protection against the stuff that's left, right? Is if your state constitution, and even in Florida, they're basically ignoring it. But in Pennsylvania, I think
in Virginia and California, they just repealed it. Yeah.
Right, but that's different because those were commissions, right? You can repeal the commission and then draw whatever map you want. But in Pennsylvania, the case law specifically says nobody can gerrymander, not even the state legislature, right? Like there are protections in the state constitution that say maps must be fair. And so that I think is going to, unless that ruling is overturned by the state Supreme Court, which would take years, and that the state Supreme Court there is partisan. So theoretically it's possible, but I do think that I would find it, the people on that court they weren't just elected like today, right? They are more, judicious.
And then I guess there's New Jersey, right? And Minnesota.
New Jersey's going to do it.
Yeah, New Jersey will.
Then
there's Minnesota. What do you make of Minnesota?
Oh, Minnesota is an interesting one. I mean, right now their state house is tied. So their hands are tied right now, but I would imagine if 2026 turns out to be as good of a year for Democrats as it looks like it's going to be, that they will have the numbers to do that. So yeah, I could see Dems getting an extra seat or two.
I mean, there's going.
And at this point, I would assume Nebraska, although it's a unicameral legislature, you never know how they will
They'd have to break the filibuster,
but they could crack. They could crack Omaha.
Because that district is going to go to Democrats, the Bacon one, so they want to get it back. Well, the point being, right, the big 50,000 foot takeaway is there's going to be a bunch of states who are jumping the pool. I mean, there's just no question.
Now at 8.5, you might take the over. At 10.5, you might take the over.
I was going to say it's going to be right in that margin.
It's going to be a lot. Like eventually you will hit a ceiling, but like what the bet that I will take with you, Chris, is that by the time the 2028 elections roll around, every state that can gerrymander will have done so to the max.
Yeah.
And we have not,
really in a maximalist map too.
And I was just going to say,
like go for 8-0 or 10-0 or whatever.
I mean, there's really never been a point in our history where we've had this kind of maximalist gerrymander on both sides of the aisle, is there?
Certainly not in modern history. Yeah. It's we're going to have a situation where you're going to have, I mean, this, might be an exaggeration, but also might not be 210 safe Republican seats, 210 safe Democratic seats.
Yeah. Well,
and then
somebody compared it. It's now the Electoral College. If you, they're not people anymore. They're just numbers.
That's right.
They're no longer individuals.
Of the jersey, not back of the jersey. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, well, we got to let Nathaniel go. Nathaniel,
without the parliamentary system that would make this make more sense.
That's right, where it would make sense. Nathaniel, thank you for wearing your Reds hat.
Yeah, expand the house, uncap the house.
I love
it. Nathaniel needs more work to do. I need more races to handicap.
800
uncap the house. This is nonsense what we're doing. Jeez.
Thank you, my friend. Take care,
Nathaniel
Rakich.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Skelly, Skelly, do you want to do the Ohio race call? Why don't you do that, and then we'll bring in our next guest.
Yes. So we just, Decision Desk HQ just projected, there are a lot of he is projected to win now what's notable here is he very narrowly lost as the Republican nominee in 2024 against Democrat Marcy Kaptur. Now he's getting another shot at it. He defeated a crowded field of opponents, including State Representative Josh Williams and former Deputy ICE Director Madison Sheehan, who are in second and third there currently. But things are looking good for Marin, and he will face Kaptur in a seat that is clearly one of the top targets for Republicans. And it is essentially right now, at least, we'll see where redistricting settles in a few of these cases. But right now, at least, it's the third reddest district that an incumbent Democrat is planning to run in. So,
and I would say when we had Erin Covey on from the Cook Report, she said Don Davis, worst Democratic seat, most likely to switch in North Carolina. That's a redistricting seat for people who don't know. Maine 2, which is where Jared Golden is retiring. And then she listed Kaptur third. So to your point, I mean, it's certainly, this will be.
And then the other one's a weird one, which is Emmanuel Cleaver, who has filed to run for re-election, the Missouri map.
Right.
Yeah. But if he doesn't running, that seat's even redder. Whereas these other seats you're talking about, these are actually competitive, and we'll see how they can shake out.
Yeah. Hey, let's bring in Nikki Kelly from the Indiana Capitol Chronicle. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, how are you guys?
Is that when a bill becomes a law graphic behind you?
It is.
Oh, that is golden. I still have that. I'm not going to sing the song, but
Did they ever do gerrymandering? Did they ever like tell us how do you draw a map for maximum political leverage? You know,
if not, someone needs to do it. Did it go to a
song, right? Yeah.
I was going to say, Chuck, that's our $1 million idea. Don't spread that around too widely.
Oh, I'm sorry. So looks like it's a good night for Donald Trump.
Excellent night for Donald Trump. They've already knocked off 3 Senate incumbents who voted against redistricting. Three other challengers are leading. I mean, I think the worst he comes out is 6-2, maybe even 7-1 out of this.
Golly. Is that, Nikki, are you surprised by that?
A little bit. I thought it might be a little more split, only because, these state Senate races are so local, right? Like these guys have deep ties
and tiny turnouts. We're not talking huge.
And they see each other in church and they, see each other at the groceries. So I didn't know if a Trump endorsement would be on the same level as like a statewide or that kind of thing. But obviously a lot of people in Indiana are wanting something new and they're definitely going for the challengers.
Man, it feels like, I still remember when I started working for Charlie Cook, the Tip O'Neill, all politics is local thing. Like everyone reminded of that all the time. And it feels like that is absolutely 100% out the window and stuff like this. Because Nikki, to your point, you're exactly right. It's like these state Senate districts, like you probably know your state senator, like he goes to your church or he's your accountant or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's not like somebody you don't know who goes to Washington. And yet even there, on an issue that the average person doesn't know jack squat about redistricting, even there, it's like, well, Donald Trump says that this person is bad. And that's enough in a lot of these places.
Yeah, I will say, though, the redistricting brought the money here, right? We saw $13 million plowed into these little state Senate races, which is shocking here in Indiana. But they did start bringing up some other issues, whether it be gas taxes or, your vote on China or things like that. So they did start really pulling out some other votes than just redistricting. But obviously that effort is what brought the money, the grassroots, the big groups.
So take us into the legislature. This is going to change the tone and tenor of the place. Is it not?
Absolutely. I don't know with these numbers, I don't know how they don't knock off Senate President Pro Tem Rod Bray, and that's been the goal. He wasn't up until 28, but their idea is if they can swing enough votes, he would lose his leadership post in November. And that is what they're going for. And they say that then they can get some more. Basically, we have a big split here, right? In Indiana, like other states have seen, you've got establishment, more traditional Republicans, and you've got the MAGA Trump Republicans. And so we're definitely going to see a shift to the Trump side of the Republican Party. And
what it sounds like what you're saying is that, because it's been sort of my observation, that the institutionalist wing of the Indiana Republican Party had actually been staying fairly strong. Yes, there was Jim Banks, but you had Todd Young. Right. Yes, there's Mike Braun, but you still had sort of Mike Pence and Mitch Daniels hanging around. Like this is not an even split anymore.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I think they're definitely gaining momentum. I think the moderates were really holding back some of the more fervent sort of sector, and we're seeing that go out the window tonight.
Let me throw if you were Todd Young, would you expect a serious primary challenge the next time you run?
Absolutely. And I'd be shocked if it wasn't someone he's already serving in Congress with.
I was going to say, would it be a U.S. House member?
Interesting. Yeah.
I was going to say one of the House members, right? Could potentially. I don't know
and honestly, I've heard several names, none that I'm comfortable throwing out here, but there are several people kicking the tires.
He's clearly not of the Jim Banks, or
Mike
part
Braun
of the party. Mike Braun even is. Chuck was saying this earlier. I remember when Mike Braun ran for the Senate, he doesn't strike me necessarily as like a hardcore DNA MAGA guy, but he kind of saw the writing on the wall and he's over there now.
He's jumped on the bus.
Young,
he doesn't.
Todd Young doesn't really, it's interesting. Todd Young, he was not involved in any of this stuff, right? Jim
He's
Banks,
grown a full beard.
Look,
I'll tell you, Nick, I don't mean to jump in here. Now that he's grown a full beard, I think it's proof he's gone full. He knows he's on an island.
It's like when Ted Cruz grew that beard after the 2016 primary, Chuck. Yeah, no, it's what is his, and I got to jump for a sec, Nikki, but what is the like Todd Young rep? Because Greg Good, who we know is his state director, won tonight. So that in theory is good for him. But like, what is the impression of him in the state?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got a great reputation. He might not do the flashy Twitter and, caustic kind of remarks and the red meat, but he works hard for his district. He focuses real specifically on things that are important to him. Honestly, there are some Democrats who support him because he's the more moderate wing. And so he gets some votes there too.
What do you expect? So what, because they were 21 Senate Republicans who voted against this map.
Correct.
How many of them changed their vote after watching this performance?
Ooh, I would say a fair amount. And not only some would change their vote, but of those, I mean, we're obviously going to see a lot of these 8 lose, but we also had several who voted against it who had decided not to seek re-election. And so we're seeing some open seats come in with more Trump persons behind them. So I would think if they brought this up again, next year, it would probably pretty easily go through.
And is this one they think they can eliminate all the Democratic districts?
Yeah, they're going 9-0. If they're going, they're trying to get rid of the 1st and the 7th. The 1st would be an easy pickup, honestly. The 7th, they kind of have to split into like 4 different congressional, Indianapolis into 4 different. And that ticked a lot of people off during the December debate.
And look, when you do those cracks, when you try to do the hub and spoke like that, there's always somebody that has to take on some Democrats that suddenly can't afford, isn't very good at having to run a competitive race. Which one of those?
I've brought up the proposed congressional map here. As well as we can see it.
There's obviously going to be one or two that will be, under 60% Republican. No.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, but someone told me once, they said Republicans are so strong in most of these districts, so maybe they won't be plus 20, right? They'll be plus 15 or plus 10. They can probably still get through on those, but it will make it harder. There will have to be some stronger campaigning, certainly, and more spending in some of those really safe districts.
Yeah, and to Chuck, we were talking about this earlier, but to the point that like Indiana used to be, I think you said more of a 55-45 state, but now it
certainly was a competitive
38 kind of state.
It was a 2-party competitive state in the state, right? Not in federal elections and stuff like that, but in the state. Your statewide elections were competitive. You would, it wasn't a doormat Democratic Party like it is, say, frankly, in an Arkansas.
Right. But right now, if you're getting 60% of the statewide vote, it's easier to crack the state 9 ways than when it might have been a little bit more competitive. Or you had some of those districts in the southern part of the state that of course used to be like a Barron Hill used to be able competitive in that part of the state. And now they're completely out.
Look, Democrats used to do really well at the Catholic vote and up in Northwest of the state.
Yeah, Southern Indiana
is a good example of that too.
Yeah, Southern Indiana has been the big, change. It used to be so much more reliably Democrat.
Oh my God, Nikki, the bloody 8th is,
right?
I'm sorry. Like when people ask me, when did Congress get bad? And people say, was it Gingrich? It was like, actually, you have to go back to 1986. And it's this, it is. And anybody that had, there's actually been a documentary on it. It was one of the worst cases of partisan chicanery that came from the House of Representatives itself. But my God, the swingiest swing districts in America, there was the 9th back in the day with Hostetler. There was, I think it went 4 straight elections where each party handed it back and forth.
That was him and Hill, right? They just kept going back and
Barron
forth.
Hill and Hostetler.
Right? Yeah. Barron Hill was the Democrat, Hostetler was the Republican for people who don't know.
Yeah,
we have a projection in another state Senate race. I want to jump.
Well, you're right here for us, Nikki.
Trevor DeVries will win State Senate 1, and the name that I keep struggling with, Durnall.
You got it.
Dan Durnall. is
been practicing
down and way down. In fact, it looks like he may be on track to have the ugliest margin of the night of any of the incumbents who are that we're going to meet defeat.
Nikki, are you? I mean, to lose by be an incumbent and lose by 50.
It's pretty massive.
Not a lot of votes, though. Chuck, this is maybe your best example of it.
But it's half. But it's half the vote is in.
Yeah.
That is definitely going to be the worst one, and that's not what I would have thought the worst one was going to be. So,
well, what's interesting?
Any special reason why you think?
Yeah. I was actually please elaborate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think maybe up there. I mean, it's so much harder to do, for incumbents. You're paying the Chicago media game and the Indianapolis media game, and it's harder to get your message out up there, I think.
No, that's a really good point about the Chicago market being so much more expensive by comparison.
And honestly, I think the Senate Majority Campaign Committee probably thought there were some others who were in deeper trouble, and so they put their money toward them. Obviously, so far they've only saved one of the 8, and that, frankly, was only because of the third candidate with the same last name of the challenger. So
yeah, that certainly didn't help. It looks like, yeah. I was curious actually because this district. Maybe
there's only one district left with an incumbent ahead.
Yeah, and that's the Spencer Deary race. So right now, maybe 2-5, and if you're counting the one that Trump didn't get involved in.
That one's right now the incumbent's losing.
The incumbent's losing. So it might be, it might be 2-6 or it might be 6-2, 7-1 night for Trump at the current rate.
Yeah, and he didn't technically endorse in that race, though earlier tonight he posted in support of all 8 great patriots.
Of course so he saw. Somebody told him the results.
Did he see the initial results? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's like,
don't
race hasn't been called.
People win.
Yeah, race
not?
Wasn't called yet. Exactly.
It was still. That's sorry. Actually, I pulled up the wrong one there. I was trying to bring up the 6th district.
Yeah.
That's Rick Niemeyer. Niemeyer, I think is how it was pronounced. You actually, Nikki, you'd probably know better. Niemeyer. Okay, that's what I thought. Awesome.
Is this a surprise to you? Because this was not Trump did not endorse the challenger.
And this is another Chicago area, or at least that northwest corner.
So Trump did not endorse in that race, but all the outside groups included this in all their stuff. So Club for Growth was involved in this, all these nonprofits, the American Leadership PAC, all those. So Turning Point USA. So even though it wasn't an endorsement, they were all in. A lot of money still went to that race. So.
Well, look, this looks like it's not going to be a clean sweep, but pretty close. It could be the gentleman's sweep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, it could be if it's just one. I'm going to check in actually on the Spencer Deary race.
Yeah, because that's going to be
the results seem to be coming in slow. So.
Yeah.
Well, we were expecting that. So, Nikki, really appreciate your time. I know you've got more copy to write of the Indiana Capitol Chronicle and a whole new state Senate to cover. So enjoy.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You got it. You too.
Thanks for coming on. Chuck, we actually have another projection coming in.
Look at that. Bring it on.
11th state Senate district. Ryan Schmutzler, we projected, will defeat incumbent Linda Rogers and give President Trump another Trump endorsed.
That's 5
victory.
now, right?
So yes, so 5. We're at 5-1 in the 7 that Trump endorsed before this evening.
Look, he's already over. Look, he's already won the series, right?
And if you're exactly. And if you're counting just all 8 who voted no, who were running for re-election on redistricting, right now it's 5-1 in favor of challengers, and the other remaining 2, one an incumbent is leading, and the other one the challenger is leading. So
right. So we're either looking at
Oh, I was just going to say, I see some people saying we need to cover Ohio a little bit more, but
this is actually a good time to move over to Ohio because we got Jessica Taylor,
exactly,
who of course does all the statewide races for the Cook Political Report with Amy Walter, and we are pretty much done, Jessica, with Indiana. We're not done, but we know the outcome.
Shout out to my cousin Michael, who turned 18 and voted in his very first election today in Indiana.
No, that's very nice. Well, right on. Welcome to voting. Welcome to aging into voting.
Yes.
America needs more voters. That's good to hear. Well, Ms. Taylor, look, there wasn't a ton of action in Ohio on the statewide level.
No.
But I am curious what you make of our friends who use money to decide which races are probable and flipping and which not, meaning the betting markets.
Yeah.
All of the prediction markets have gotten very positive on the two Democratic statewide campaigns, but in particular, the surprise to people is Amy Acton being seen as at least even money, if not slightly slight favored over Ramaswamy. I've always thought Ramaswamy was somebody who was going to underperform a generic Republican.
Mm-hmm.
But are you as bearish on his campaign as it appears people with money are?
We did shift our rating recently, so it is rated lean Republican now. I mean, it's one we're closely watching. I think the thing that Ramaswamy has is he's going to have more money than he knows what to do with. So I think this is a real test of, is he going to be, I think he has a lot of vulnerabilities clearly as a candidate. When you're out there saying you should close colleges that are the lifeblood of many local economies. I'm not sure that's the best message in some instances. He came off as, he had the very, how can I say this diplomatically? They were very divisive debate performances. And if that happens again, also during his debates with Amy Acton, she's someone that I thought that COVID would
I was a skeptic. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I thought COVID was too much baggage to carry.
Yeah. So that was my kind of inclination to begin with. But in having talked with her, I do think that she has, it's interesting. I think she has the DeWine credibility in a way that Ramaswamy doesn't in some regards, even though they're of the same party. I mean, you wouldn't say that Ramaswamy is a DeWine Republican versus, he's actually come to her defense on COVID and closures and different things. So I think that she's someone.
Look, DeWine has endorsed Ramaswamy. It doesn't mean he votes for him.
Well, we'll see. It's what you do on the privacy of your voting booth.
That's right.
One of the most sacrosanct, things that we have as Americans, who you decide in that privacy. So, but I think that there was, thinking back to COVID, there was sort of a trauma bond, I think, that happened, and people remember that she and DeWine and those briefings got them through a lot. So, she's talked about the people come up to her and say, you gave me a lot of hope and different things. And I think as a doctor, it gives her credibility as well. So, this is one that I think we're certainly watching it really closely. To me, the two biggest gubernatorial surprises, I'm not even sure if we can call Iowa a surprise on the gubernatorial map anymore.
We all kind of saw that Sanders was as good of a candidate.
More, you could see that one coming. More so with Rob Sand, but I think Ohio is one of the biggest surprises on the gubernatorial map for me this cycle.
Let me ask you this though: what if John Husted were the presumptive nominee for governor?
I'm not sure Amy Acton would have run then.
Look, I don't know about that, but you're essentially confirming my belief, which is I think Ramaswamy is uniquely a bad recruit for Ohio Republicans.
Like I said, he is a divisive figure.
Right, he's polarizing. Right.
He's polarizing. And, one of the things when I was reporting out when we moved the Senate rating a couple of weeks ago, too, I was hearing from Republicans that worry about the impact that he's having on Husted and on that race, too. So these are all interconnected.
Which race impacts which more?
That's a good question. I mean, typically you would have, I think, someone like Rob Sand in Iowa is certainly helping the Senate race.
And look, generically, governors' races usually make the weather.
Right.
In these, because voters usually care more about, it's a Jersey decision for Senate. It's a personal decision for governor, right? Yeah. Now that's becoming, we're more polarized all the time, so there's less of those voters every day, but they clearly still exist, or you wouldn't have Democratic governors in in Kansas and Kentucky, or Republican governors in places in New England. So,
I mean, I think these races can, in a way, go hand in hand, because you have someone like Sherrod Brown that has his populism that is so well known throughout the state. And
Jessica, the dignity of work. The dignity of work. Yeah, it's just something people should not keep overlooking.
It's a good gravelly Sherrod Brown impression there, Chuck. Yeah.
Yeah, so hey, I brought up his just because you don't have really very interesting primaries statewide in Ohio tonight, but
he only got 90.
Yeah, shout out to Aaron, who's covering the more of the races tonight for us. I didn't have any work to do.
Yeah, with the House going on, there's more House stuff of interest in Ohio than
Jessica,
statewide.
The biggest question, in all honesty, that I had about Sherrod Brown running was, I can't believe Schumer talked him into running, because if he wins, he's got to turn around and
run again in 2 years.
Yeah.
Which for him would mean 6 straight years of running for a U.S. Senate seat.
Yeah.
Hey.
In his 70s.
You got to be a little. Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe his wife signed off on that too. Yeah. I mean, look, there was a lot of people pushing him to run for governor, right? I believe, including perhaps people in his family.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think I cover both of these things, of course, and I think governor is a better gig, hands down, every day of the week.
Especially in this political environment.
Yeah, exactly. You get to live at home. You don't have to commute to DC. You're not one of 100. That's why so many governors that go to the Senate are so frustrated, and why we've seen a record number of senators leaving to run for governor. So
right.
Yeah, that stat is so striking. I think we're at 4 who are running.
Yep. Klobuchar, Tuberville, Bennett,
Blackburn.
And then Blackburn in my home state. Also, little known fact, there are Tennessee primaries tonight, local elections.
Yes, the local elections. Yes. There are actually a lot of them, because, we Decision Desk.
Wait a minute. It's not a Thursday night.
I know it should be.
What is that about, actually? Why is this on a Tuesday and Tennessee's
mostly does Thursdays?
Yeah. My county mayor is in quite the very close race here. Than one of my tabs that is open here. She's only up 3 points in the Republican primary. I love that I scroll down and it just says Democrat, no candidates filed. So winning the primary there is tantamount.
Yes, the tantamount. Yeah. I mean, it's just thinking back to Ohio, I saw some chatter in the comments. I mean, one of the challenges for Democrats, of course, is that who would run if Sherrod Brown didn't run. Now, it might have been Amelia Sykes has been talked about. She also might have been looking at a gubernatorial bid. She used to be, high up in the state legislature.
But it would not be the race that it is today.
It's real. I mean, it's just really tough if you're Democrats trying to find someone who can win and has won recently. Well, there's only one statewide elected, and actually, maybe this is a good time for me to just quickly bring it up. There's only one statewide elected, and when she got elected, who's a Democrat in Ohio, when she got elected, they didn't have partisan elections yet for state Supreme Court, but now they do. The Republicans actually have a very highly contested primary to face Jennifer Brunner, who is the former Secretary of State in Ohio and is the only elected Democrat in statewide office in Ohio left, with Brown having lost. But it is interesting that you have a sort of, is Brown a retread? Yes. But is he on a different level of retread, having served 3 Senate terms? It's not like a one-term House member who lost and then came back and ran, a couple more times.
Yeah. Here's why
Sherrod Brown is a young 70 too. He does run around. No, I say this, I have to, it does surprise me he's in his 70s. I mean, he's got a energy about him. Sort of back when Chuck Grassley it was in his 70s and 80s, you thought, my God, the guy really hangs in there. I mean,
Chuck Grassley in his 90s can still run further than I can. This is what I always go back to. He still runs that.
He's certainly mowing more lawns than you are these days, Jessica.
This is true. I pay someone to mow my lawn.
Well, look, it's a
but to go back to sort of where I do think getting getting Brown to run was so crucial, for all sort of the hand wringing over Chuck Schumer and different things. And I just finished watching the Iowa Senate debate, and that's another place where Chuck Schumer is being brought into it a lot too. Getting Roy Cooper, getting Sherrod Brown, getting Mary Peltola. I mean, because that gets you to 3. And
they may be right about Turek versus Walz.
Yeah.
In Iowa, right? Give us your punditry on that Senate primary debate. Was it acrimonious?
They agreed on a lot more than I thought that they would. But I just think with Zach Walz, the ads sort of write themselves in so many ways. Like it's just going to be like endorsed by Elizabeth Warren. I think that listen, I think that we're certainly watching that when we're waiting for that primary night here in a couple of weeks and stuff too. But, I think that Turek has an electability argument that he's making. And, when you're from a red district and things too, I think it's an argument that makes sense when you're trying to look to flip a state like Iowa. So
yeah, I think that's a really good point, Jessica. Yeah. Just thinking about, he's from what, Sioux City in the western part of the state.
No. He's Council Bluffs.
Council Bluffs, sorry. Yeah,
Council Bluffs. Sorry. Still
we all got it wrong. I'm tired. Yeah.
It's the Omaha. He's part of the Omaha market.
Yeah, sorry.
Of Iowa.
Yeah. What am I saying?
Very
popular. Yes, but Council Bluffs still the western part of the state.
Yeah,
correct. It's just the lower down. Yeah,
lower down, farther south. Sorry. Yeah. And so that is different than being from Iowa City, which is Walz's turf, which is like the blue, the very, very blue.
Yeah. But in a primary,
most progressive part.
Yeah, in a primary, Johnson County is pretty important. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Jessica. I assume. Do you have different race ratings in your head depending on who that nominee is?
I probably do. Yeah.
Okay.
Fair to think that. Yeah.
Hey, Chris.
I don't miss a full Jessica Taylor appearance if I can help it. I had to go do TV.
You come for the Ohio analysis, and you stay for a little bit of Iowa Senate debate.
Were you guys talking Iowa Senate debate? Josh Turek against Zach Walz?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was getting all of the. I'm on both of their email lists, so I was getting the constant 30 emails of who's winning and who is not winning, which is not pleasant.
Let me guess. They both thought they won.
They both won. Yes. Yep. Amazingly enough.
Amazing.
And there's, by the way, California governor's debate tonight as well. You can double screen that. CNN. I'm gonna governor's debate.
Look, before we let Jessica go, because we got to bring in one more guest. So I had a little fun list. I did the top 5 gubernatorial one-party droughts that are most likely to go away this cycle.
Okay.
Probably not Wyoming.
4 terms or more. 4 terms or more.
So the same party has been the governor for 16 years straight.
For at least 4 terms or more. And the 5 that I of these droughts, they have to be that long or more. So 4 terms or more. The only ones that I thought were remotely competitive, meaning single digit, there'll be single digits, maybe under 5. Iowa, Ohio, Georgia, Alabama, and Texas. Any disagreements
Georgia has been
there?
16 years.
I don't know about Alabama. I'm not a full. I mean,
you're not buying Doug Jones.
I'm not buying Doug Jones.
I am buying the Voting Rights Act.
You need
anger,
a massive black turnout.
Massive black turnout.
I mean, right.
But he's not facing Roy Moore this time.
No,
although Tommy Tuberville isn't that much better than Roy Moore.
Tommy is a... Well, hey, Tuberville's got his issues, but he doesn't have some of the ones more.
No.
But Tuberville is his own unique kind of odd. And
no,
by the way, the residency issue
might win like 55-45, which would be a great performance for Doug Jones as a Democrat in Alabama.
Yeah.
And it is not clear he's constitutionally eligible to serve.
Yeah, no, it's a real
because of
that's a real thing, and he has not been able to provide any sort of fig leaf of proof that he meets the 7-year
requirement. He might be lucky that the people who would be looking to enforce that are mostly from his party.
Yeah,
correct.
The election officials. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway,
so of those 5, the only one you don't buy. Interesting. It's Alabama, not Texas, that you don't buy. Texas is just weirdly close, man. For whatever reason, Abbott cannot get space.
Yeah, I still think Abbott's going to win, obviously.
So do I. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think I would put my money more on Texas being closer than Alabama.
All
I
right.
think it's hard too if you've been the incumbent for as long as Abbott has.
For
At
1,000
some
years,
point,
that
people
eventually
start,
there's
they
fatigue.
start
Yeah.
to be like, let's
Yeah.
just go on to someone else. Who can
Yeah.
I vote for somebody else?
No, there's definitely that. The great Jessica Taylor.
Thank you.
Great to see
Thank you,
Bye,
Jessica.
guys.
Bye, Jess.
All right, but Jessica doesn't get to be the closer. We got the closer tonight. Let's bring in the closer. James Downs. Come on, we need a save. We need it. You're
James,
the closer.
are you right-handed or left-handed?
I'm right-handed. Why?
Okay, so I had it right. We're going to the right.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're going to the
I just want
righty.
to make sure. I didn't want to do
Going to the righty out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
Can you hear Chuck? I think Chuck might be muted. I can't
no.
hear him.
No,
No,
he's
we-
not muted. I
we
hear
hear
him
him.
loud and clear. I hear
You're
Chuck's
just
voice
the
at
lucky.
all
You're one of the
times,
lucky
so.
ones.
No, I
Jim.
can't hear him at all for whatever reason.
Uh-oh. Well, all right. I'll ask questions then, at least at the start until we can get Chuck unmuted,
Fair
because we
enough.
can hear him.
Oh.
James, so we are now, and Skelly, I want you to check me in case I'm wrong, but I was monitoring. We are now at 5 Trump wins in Indiana Senate districts, 1 loss, ostensibly the incumbent won, and 1 too close to call at the moment. Jeffrey, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I have to step away for a second. I'm
No,
sorry.
no sweat. No problem. James, surprised, not surprised. I was just on News Nation and the Chiron said big night for Trump in Indiana, which I was like, yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah, it
seems
is.
fair.
It's not a small night.
Yeah.
No.
And just for what it's worth, I couldn't hear Jeffrey either. So I don't know. Chris, you're the only person I can hear.
This is like my dream, Chuck.
You're the only person I need to hear, you know?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm not surprised, but I'm also. I was talking with my friends. I was talking with Kirk included. Like, I'm not trying to put too much stock into this night as a barometer of Trump's strength or not strength. And I know that's kind of an against the grain take, but you look at how many votes are cast in these elections.
We've talked about it. Not many.
Not many.
Yeah.
Like,
There's barely 100,000 combined.
Right,
3,000
100,000
votes.
combined. Chuck is saying, which is exactly right. Yeah.
Right. Like it's a very small number of votes. So, there'll be other tests out there, in a couple weeks, Andy Barr in Kentucky.
Massey.
Right. Massey.
Yep.
That's another good. I know you guys talked about that earlier, but like, of course it's impossible to say it's not a good night. He got what he wanted. And looks like it's going to shift the sort of the mood of the caucus in Indianapolis, and they might get what they want in 2028. And also it probably starts to put pressure on maybe some reluctant R's this cycle in, say, South Carolina, where I know there's some hesitancy there about, not hesitancy, but there doesn't seem like they're pushing it. And now you might look at this and be like, oh, I might lose my seat.
This amps up the urgency, right? The quote unquote sense of urgency that
I got it. I'll repeat. Go ahead,
That
Chuck.
the White House wants to have. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but Chuck has been making this point all night, which is not only does it have an impact in Indiana, right? We've been talking about this. If you're a state senator who voted against this map and you're not up until 2028, you're not an idiot. When it comes back up in 27, unless you are really principled, you're probably going to vote for it. But it's not just that. It's the knock-on effect. This is a point Chuck has made. And you mentioned this, James, about South Carolina. It's the knock-on effect in South Carolina. We've already seen Kay Ivey, the governor of Alabama, reverse course. So we're not going to do it. Okay, we are going to do it. I mean, my only point is Chuck and I have spent a lot of time looking for are there cracks in the Trump, this incredibly unified, still, given where his poll numbers are, unified Republican Party. And it's like, man, he's still the big baddie that you have to be afraid of if he's against you, right? I mean, that's my only, I don't want to extrapolate too much, but if I'm Tom Massey, I feel less good tonight than I did yesterday.
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about, right? And I even think in 2024, right? Like Trump was, he's still clearly seen as the leader of the party. In 2024, that was no different. He endorsed John McGuire against Bob Good in the 5th District in Virginia. That was an incredibly close race. I think McGuire only won by like a point or two. And there wasn't this discussion, is there a crack? And so I think about that, and especially at the congressional level, and, maybe we'll see bear out in the mass you see. Like, it's incredibly hard to knock off an incumbent. And I'm not saying anything,
Yes.
out of the ordinary there, right? That's conventional wisdom. But that probably gives Massey a fighting chance. And I know Nathaniel was talking about how much of a brand he has in that district. He certainly does. But yeah, right. Like, are you uneasy about it? Sure, maybe.
And it is, Chuck is saying it is a closed primary too, right? So it's just Republicans, which I wonder if that makes it. Massey is so iconoclastic. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, we're going to spend a lot of time, right, analyzing Massey. And it's like, he is so, like, he's like Rand Paul. Like, they're Republicans, but like, they've never really been MAGA, but they're also like they're not the like Mitt Romney wing of the party either. Like, they're kind of off on their own island. Anyway, but go ahead, Jim, make your point. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just, I think you guys make a good point. And I just think, like, it would be foolish to jump to massive overarching conclusions about like what this means for the future of the Republican Party, or like what that means in these primaries. All that to say is, like, yeah, like I would still rather be the person with the Trump endorsement than not.
Totally.
Right? Like, whether or not this bodes greatly for Ed Galbraith or not, like, I would still rather have his endorsement than not.
Chuck, you got one you want, and I'll pass along to James, and then we'll get out.
I know this. We're playing like the game of telephone, right?
Telephone
that moves around here. Look, I at this point, it's sort of whether this helps Trump with other Republicans. Does this, does this help him with this with trying to look? A loss tonight would have been really bad.
Yep.
And it sounds like what James is saying is that a win tonight just means he didn't get another wound tonight.
Well, so to Chuck's point, James, and I always do wonder this when we're doing like winners and losers, is like, let's say that the opposite outcome had happened. Trump endorsed candidates win one of these primaries and the incumbent state senators win 5. Well, I won't speak for Chuck. I would have been like, this is a shit night for Trump. It's already bad. So it's like, okay, well, if we were going to declare him a loser, if the opposite outcome,
right,
should we declare him a winner if he got what he wanted? I mean, I don't know. I just always want to try to be like fair.
I think he had more to lose than he did gain.
And Chuck's point is he had more to lose than he did gain, which is true, I think, given his political positioning. James, you want to give us one thought on that, and we'll let you go.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I feel like we're like after a baseball game, like the translators. Like, I just have to assume, Chris, that you are telling.
Chuck was actually just bad mouthing you for 5 minutes straight.
Right, I have no idea what he's saying.
James Downs, that's so and so.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
But no, I think, right, like I have been since the get-go trying to just be level-headed about this, whether he had a great night or a bad night, that I just don't think this matters yet, just because of how small the data is. And I know it's 8 races, right? But it's still such a small number of races. And I'd like to see, or a number of votes, excuse me. I'd like to see what happens in these higher stakes primaries. And in a lot of them, like the congressional seats, the gubernatorial, like Vivek, for example, not only did he endorse him, he then just cleared those right out. Vivek didn't.
Yeah, there's no primary because of Trump in that Ohio governor's race.
Exactly. You look at, like, I don't know, let's look at a month ago, Eric Flores down in Texas 34. That was a competitive one, former Representative Myra Flores. Eric Flores wiped the floor with her, and that's probably on the basis. And there's probably some voter fatigue there with Myra. But, Eric Flores ended up waxing the floor with Myra Flores. And so, anyway, all that to say is, like, I have tried to not just jump to too many conclusions based off of these hyper local, the one in Northwest Indiana, right? It was a shellacking. But like what that means, bigger picture, I'd like to see, the next several months of primaries happen before we start, jumping to these conclusions.
And we will, and to your point, James, look, we're going to have a run of primaries between now and the end of June that are going to give us a lot of data points that I think we're going to draw more conclusions from. And by the way, Chuck and I and DDHQ will be here, and we will have James on. James, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. All right, so Chuck, I mean, I want to do let's do a few final thoughts, because we got one, just to reset for people. that what we were focused on was the 7 Indiana state senators that Republicans that Donald Trump endorsed against because they voted against the map he wanted. 5 of them have lost. 1 of them has won, and 1, I believe, although I'll have Scott Trent or Skelly when he comes back on, check us on that. But my only thing,
one of them is going to go all the way. One of them is
very close, right?
And there's so little vote left. There's more than 95% of the vote is in, and we're looking at less than a 200 vote margin.
Right.
The incumbent is ahead, but 200 votes with what's left is actually more like leading by 2,000 votes, right?
Yeah, right, because there's so few votes cast.
Correct.
Right.
It is one of those that, a drop isn't going to flip it right away. And it looks like an incumbent may hang on there.
So maybe 5-2. Look, I take James's point, which is, look, when we're talking about
6-2 if you count the 8.
6-2 if you count the other one. Yes.
Yeah.
I take James's point, which is, we're talking about 12,000 votes here, or, 15,000 votes here. All I will say, though, is like there's a lot of evidence over the last decade that crossing Donald Trump, again, we are not talking about Donald Trump's appeal among the general electorate, but crossing Donald Trump in the Republican Party in a Republican primary is still bad. It's
mostly a career ender.
Right. And so I that's sort of my takeaway.
There's Brian Kemp, right? There's Brian Kemp. Like, think about the people who have fought Trump, beat him, and are still kicking, right?
I mean, he attacked Massey last time around, but not a ton. So Massey, to me, Kemp is the only one. Trump recruited David Perdue, the former senator, to get into that race. And by the way, Brian Kemp didn't just win. I mean, he kicked David Perdue's ass in that primary.
Kicked him up
it's
and down
unbelievable because it's such an outlier. But you're right. Skelly, you're back. We're doing final thoughts. But you're right.
We're about to wrap it up.
There's just not a lot of data points that say crossing Donald Trump on something as arcane
as
redistricting.
And the fact is he cared. Had he not, that's the thing. Like it's weird with Trump. If you cross him on something he cares about and he decides to all right, I'm bringing the howitzer. I'm bringing
hell with me.
I'm bringing in La Savita, okay, which is the equivalent of bringing the howitzer, right?
Yep.
You're gonna lose. If you could avoid, you can defy him as long as you don't shove it in his face.
Or it's something he
it's something he personally cares about.
Deeply cares about, which is like you work. I mean, I think his view of the Republican Party is like, you guys work for me. You do what I say. He believes
he's the CEO.
Right? I don't care. I don't care if you're in the Indiana State Senate. Like, you're a Republican. I'm the head of the Republican Party. Do what I want. And in truth, and again, if I'm Tom Massey, I feel worse tonight than I felt last night. Doesn't mean he'll lose. But this seems to suggest Donald Trump still gets what he wants within the Republican Party. Skelly, do you want to? I was just wrapping up 5 called for Trump back challengers, or is it 6?
One for an incumbent. 6 have been called total. 2 aren't called yet.
Yes.
Those are
so
split.
Actually,
so it's 5 and right now Trump's 5-1, and he's got 2 left. And if they stay with the leaders, he'd be 6-2.
So we actually did just get a projection with the the Rick Niemeyer race that wasn't really included in the 7 that we were looking at.
He did not technically endorse.
Right.
But he did tonight. He did a couple hours ago.
I'm just saying. This is one of the no votes. This is one of the no. This was the one no vote who didn't have a Trump endorsed opponent,
and he lost.
But he was in the end. It looks like that incumbent also has gone down. So I think if you wanted to,
what district is that, Skelly? I'm just keeping.
No, he's up to. He's got 6.
6.
So
that's 6. So 6 out of the 8.
And Spencer Deary is ahead. We're basically down to final few votes there, and maybe it's going to come down to are there some provisional ballots? Are there some other things? But Spencer Deary is up by like 200 votes, less than 200 votes, which right now is about a little less than 1.5 points in margin. So he looks like he's probably going to hold on, but it would be just him and Good holding on if he does.
Fascinating. Yeah. Chuck, do you have any big big takeaway from this? I mean, to me, it's just Trump remains. It's, if you come at the king, you best not miss situation, right? Like he's still in the Republican Party. Crossing him is likely the end.
It is. There is I go back to, I think this would have been worse had he failed at this effort.
Yes.
The
national story.
That's right. That's right. He has successfully won 8 primaries with a total number of votes of approximately 96,000 people. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
So, it is sort of like taking the Iowa caucuses and extrapolating them out, which of course,
no one would do that, Chuck.
Who would do that, right? Nobody ever does things like that.
That's never happened once in the history
Not
of
once
politics.
ever, right? That you take something like this. But it goes back to the point you made earlier with James that when you were translating for me.
Yes.
Which was simply, I do think this is a bigger deal had he lost, but it's a big deal that he could win now because anybody on the fence,
yes.
It's sort of like, is it worth the risk?
Why?
Right.
You see where the wind is still blowing.
And by the way,
yep.
Look, I don't like this stuff. I'm sure plenty of Indiana Republicans don't like this stuff, but you now realize, Team Blue and Team Red have made the decision. This is how it's going to work for the next couple of cycles.
That's right.
So either you're on board or you're getting out of politics.
That's it.
Because right now, this is how the two parties have chosen to engage each other. Look, I think the biggest loser is the U.S. Congress, because we are headed for the Congress to be turned into the Electoral College.
Maximalist
where, again,
redistricting
they're not,
everywhere it's possible.
These are not individuals. They're widgets. Because the minute the widget behaves like an individual, they will either get remapped or challenged.
Yep.
So it is
like the incentives are all to just stay in line.
This is super unhealthy. We are going to an era that we've never had, and I don't know how we break this spell between the two parties within the two parties. Nope. It's going to have an outside force.
It's going to nights like tonight convince me it will get worse before it gets better. Not that I didn't think that before, but Skelly, when we
I've
had
been on that streak for a while.
You want to, and this is why the real solution: uncap the House.
Uncap the House. I'm behind the Chuck Todd.
Maybe.
Chuck Todd's out. Skelly, got any last thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that, this is going to get worse before it gets better. The redistricting stuff is going to continue. There's going to be more to talk about ahead of the 2028 election.
Yep.
I don't know what is going to happen with some of the states that have commissions. Are those going to continue? Are they going to get, is there going to be a push to get rid of them in some places?
They all seem to be a suggestion now, as opposed to I mean, I would assume that all that stuff will be out the window, because to Chuck's point, if it's just kind of shame and humility is out the window, which I think it is, then it's like, well, we're just going to do whatever we need to do, and the justification,
we got to do whatever it takes to win.
The other guys are doing
what you take to win.
Right.
Look, the real loser is political reform movements, and
100%.
Because if you care about political reform, you can't trust either party to have your back on it. So now you're on your own.
Yep.
And it's lonely out there in the third party independent political reform era. But the political reformists, the good ones, have realized you can't ever trust the two parties, because ultimately they're going to do what's in their own best interest. But this really does put the political reform movement on an island. And it's, unless there's a handful of billionaires that care about political reform, we'll see where this is headed.
They haven't stepped forward yet. Anyway, so we are.
Tom Steyer spending his
on
Tom
Steyer.
millions on becoming governor.
I will
Tom
say
Steyer.
first. I don't think that the words political reform and Tom Steyer have ever been said.
No, I just was thinking about rich people who are spending lots of money on their
Yes.
own political careers.
He has a deeply seated belief in himself. So it's May 5th. We are back the 19th, which is a big one.
Big
Obviously,
night.
Kentucky, Tom Massey. There's a Senate primary there where it looks like Andy Barr, the congressman, is going to come through for the McConnell.
That got less interesting because Trump's interference.
Skelly,
anything
coming in else on the
but if Daniel Cameron gets 45%, Daniel Cameron over 45,
keep him under.
That could be
Georgia. So we have Georgia on the
Georgia's
19th.
got Senate, governor, Republican side. Very interesting. Both of those
couple of
are
runoffs.
headed to runoffs. Yeah.
Is it? They lowered their runoff threshold to 40%.
No,
or not?
I think Georgia's still 50.
Is
if I'm
Georgia
not
still a
mistaken.
50?
But I still
One of
think
them
it
is a
will be-
40.
Yeah,
Who
I
lowered
think
to 40?
they will be runoff, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Well, anyway, we will be back May 19th. Thank you for everyone who watched.
Yes, thank you.
Go listen to the Chuck ToddCast. Go check out Decision Desk HQ. They will make you smarter. I mean, look, I do them both every day because they make me smarter.
There
you
you
should
go.
check out Chris Cillizza. So what?
No, don't
And
do that.
so
I
what?
said make you smarter. No, don't check me out. All right. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, y'all. Go
Adios,
Nats,
everybody.
except not tonight.
Yeah, rough night against the
Rough
Twins.
night. Stupid Braves continue
Against
to win.
the former
Really.
Washington Senators. I don't like losing to the former Washington
Brutal.
Senators.
All right, everyone.
It's terrible. All right.
Bye, y'all.
Good night.